day 25 of the war in Iran. But who knows? Maybe the last few days of war with Iran, or maybe the last few weeks, or maybe months. Although I don't think there are any reports saying that this will go upwards of few months. But who knows at this point, because I don't really know what exactly the US administration is thinking, or specifically what Trump is thinking, since Iran had a deadline of 48 hours to open up the Strait of Hormuz. They didn't, because why would they? And Trump postponed that. He said 5 more days where he will not strike anything, to basically allow for negotiations.
He
Welcome to
didn't.
the Daily Objective. Joining me today is James Valiant, and I'm Daniel. I'll go to James for his opening thoughts.
I don't think he said anything. I think he certainly will permit Israel to continue its operations, but he
No,
won't
I
hit.
think he said suspend attacks on I think infrastructure. I can look up specifically,
Yeah,
but
I think it was specifically energy infrastructure. He indicated there was one important electricity area where he could melt it like dust or something, but he won't do that. He'll hold back on doing that. He doesn't want the civilian infrastructure to be necessarily utterly destroyed, etc. But the point, though, is that we've got Iran saying we're not negotiating with this guy, and we've got Trump saying, oh no, we've got all these productive negotiations going on. That should tell you something about the strength of the negotiations. If how can I trust any outcome of a negotiation if the other guy says we're not even negotiating at the moment? And I understand both have internal political, both Trump and the Islamic Republic have political reasons they need to say that. But the thing is that this entire operation was condition based. It wasn't date based. He did give time estimates of, 4 to 5 weeks, stuff like that. But what he laid out were a series of objective conditions. Those conditions have obviously not been met. They're still executing their own people. They're still firing missiles. And so long as those things continue, we know the government has not capitulated. This isn't unconditional surrender, Mr. Trump, which is one of the things you said, nor is it completely destroying their missile program, which is one of the specific objectives. And it shouldn't be time-based. It should be objective-based. That is to say, the goal, have we met the goal? And so long as they're firing missiles, it seems to me that we have not achieved the goal that you laid out as a condition, as one of the goals and one of the conditions. So it should be condition-based when we end this, not can I strike a deal and use the Venezuela model, and that's what he is. There's still, it's true that when Trump changed governments in Venezuela, hundreds of political prisoners were released. But it is my understanding that there are still hundreds of political prisoners languishing in Venezuelan prisons. So I'm not sure I want the Venezuela model here in Iran, because that would mean that we simply have a government, an evil dictatorship still in power that will eventually, regroup, that will eventually rebuild, that will eventually, what would prevent them from acquiring new uranium from their friends in China and North Korea, new equipment to refine that uranium, continue with their missile program, again, with a little help from their friends in China. So I don't see what this whole exercise would have been about. In fact, it would have a counter-deterrent effect if, in effect, the same regime with all of its evil characteristics continues. Now, he says that in the negotiations, one of the things that they've agreed to is no more pursuing a nuclear bomb altogether. Okay, lovely. No more regional terrorism. Okay, that's what they say. If it's the same people, and if they're in effect saying, no, we're not even negotiating with this guy who says that we've come to these agreements, that undermines my confidence in everything. I have to be that honest. It would really be counterproductive if he doesn't do something about it, because then, of course, Iran has learned that they can always blackmail the Strait of Hormuz. If the Strait of Hormuz and oil prices is going to make you go wobbly, Mr. Trump, and if that makes you stop, then that blackmail on the Strait of Hormuz will continue and continue with renewed power. It would be counterproductive for the deterrent effect, even just the deterrent effect on the Islamic Republic. So Israel, keep going as long as Mr. Trump will let you go. And Mr. Trump, where's your thinking? Is it to make the Iranian people, reassure the Iranian people that you're not after the people and that all you want is a better government for them? Or are you just going to leave this evil regime in power, able to blackmail the Gulf states forever and ever?
Yeah, now, I mean, when it comes to the deal itself, by the way, I've seen some reports that Iran has accepted it, but all those are basically from not really reputable news sites, so I haven't seen any official confirmation of that. And even when it comes to the deal, apparently Israel doesn't believe Iran will take it, and they must be watching the show because they said exactly what I did. Basically, that it looks like the deal actually does include like complete demilitarization, we could call it, like no support for the proxies, no giving up all of enriched uranium,
Right.
getting rid of their missile program, getting rid of the nuclear program, which again, like from the point of Iran, why would they ever accept that?
Why would
I
they?
mean, if your goal would be, if you are an Iranian leader that wants the long-term success, economic success of Iran and wants to establish capitalism and enforce property rights and recognize intellectual property, then yes, you would take this deal. But that's not Iran that we're dealing with fundamentally. Generally, if that was the Iran we are dealing with, we wouldn't be in war right now, and there is simply non-recognition of that fact. We are still dealing with Iran as if they are, I guess, pragmatic or practical, as if they are other Gulf states. Like for all the, still problematic dictatorships that the other Gulf states are, at least they are willing to play ball in a sense, right? And at least they wanna not actively attack America and host U.S. bases there. Maybe that's what Trump is thinking. Maybe Trump thinks Iran is just that. It's just another Gulf state we can deal with in the same way, that we've dealt with.
I think there is part of Trump. Trump does not have a moral perspective on foreign governments. I mean, for him, it's a purely pragmatic thing. And so if he can render, I think in his own mind, if he can render Iran, not much different than the United Arab Emirates, then he'll go for it. It could be a lot of things going on. It could be that he's, again, head faking them, and he has been known to do that.
We are at war. I don't think there's that much head faking you can do.
Well, but there are different scenarios that can play out. Let's say that an Iranian drone hits another, let's say that there is another Iranian attack, let's put it that way. What would Trump do in response? Far from, the restraint that he's exhibiting, they would be showing bad faith. So I don't know what's going on in his head, because he may well believe, okay, Iran has no interest in doing this the next time they move, or within the next 5 days. But why give them the 5 days? Why even lay that out in my mind as I just can't even see what that advantages, how that advantages you. But he's been known to do head fakes. It's hard to read Trump's mind. That's the problem with a person who really isn't principled. It is only a person's principles that I have. I mean, we always still have free will. I can always still get surprised even when a person is principled, or at least lays out principles. We can't read other human beings' minds, but at least if a person consistently articulates principles, you can somehow predict within a certain range their behavior. Unfortunately, I can't say that about Mr. Trump. I just hope that he knows that the government has not met his stated objectives. He has not made his stated objectives, and it's an objectives-based thing, not a time-based thing, as it ought to be. And if he can be spooked by the price of oil when it comes to war, then he doesn't know what war is all about.
We are joined by Jonathan Honig. Jonathan, do you have any opening thoughts? If not, I
No,
can.
just kind of catching up with some of the news and emphasizing, uh, re-emphasizing what James said, what had been the president's explicit stated goals. And one of the things that I know I mentioned, I think I talked about with Yar the other day was, my big fear was a compromise, and you don't have to look too far in Miss Rand's writings or teachings to understand it. I mean, Jim, I'm sure you know the line better than me, but I always think of it like when you compromise with evil, it's only evil that benefits. And any so-called deal with that keeps the mullahs in power, that keeps the theocracy in power, if you think in principles, as Ms. Rand said, and if you think long term, I just don't see how that could possibly be a win.
That's exactly it. Any deal with evil is a loss for the good. Period. End of report. Any compromise, Ayn Rand had so many beautiful metaphors on this. Any compromise between food and poison. Why would you make any compromise between food and poison? But in that such a compromise, only the poison can win. If a burglar breaks into your house and you start negotiating over the silver spoons, I don't care if it's one spoon, you've lost the principle that the spoons are yours and he has no right to them. And Ayn Rand had so many beautiful metaphors about the world is when it comes to values, the world is a black and white place. And once it's true, there's a lot of gray, but gray is a mixture of black and white. And if you can identify and separate out the black and the white, why would you ever compromise with the black? It can only.
I thought about that line when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, that even granting Russia a tiny sliver, one parking lot in Ukraine, one like shopping mall in Ukraine, just giving them that says what essentially validates and sanctions what they did and encourages, of course, more of it. And the same thing's true in the Middle East as well.
Precisely right. Precisely right. Oh, you compromise now. You give them, whatever, however kilometers you compromise with them now. Well, then they'll just bide their time for the rest of the kilometers of the territory they want. All you've done is rewarded, in effect, their aggression. Well, this time this much. Well, next time maybe that much, and next time maybe that much. It's reverse deterrence. It's reverse deterrence. If you let the price of oil, if you let blackmailing the Strait of Hormuz make you go wobbly right now, then what you've done is said that the Iranian government can always blackmail at the Strait of Hormuz, can always blackmail the Gulf states, and in effect always blackmail the world economy. What you've done is you've given them the green light. You've defined their future strategy. And I don't know whether it'll be 6 months from now or 6 years from now, but they'll be right at it, having been rewarded for it.
Yeah, and I guess sort of keeping up with the negotiations. Well, first somebody said, retrospectively, do we believe there were any negotiations prior to the attack launch? If this was a head fake, no reason to think this isn't either. I think it depends what time frame we are talking about, because we are not only talking about, let's say, a week before war, we are talking about everything from basically day before war, which is when the sort of last round, the round 8 or something ended, to basically the end of 12-day war, or even like before the 12-day war, right? Because I mean, in a sense, there are always some negotiations going on. Like they were also broken supposedly.
Well, there was one thing about the negotiations in Oman before this war broke out that was interesting. You'll notice that after the 12-day war, Trump sent most of the U.S. Navy away. They were going away from the region. And then in early January, that horrible violence when the Iranians were slaughtering tens of thousands of their own people, Trump said help was on the way. And it was at that moment that you could see that the ships were returning to the area. Aircraft carriers were high-speeding it back to the region of Iran. I think that's when his decision was made, because, I don't think anything in negotiations in Oman would have made a difference, because how can you trust such a bad faith player? He says, we didn't believe them and we weren't going to believe them. Okay, well, then why were you negotiating? Well, one thing they did offer was, look, we'll give you free enriched uranium, but at a at the 5% level, that is the most you'd probably need. If you give us your enriched uranium beyond that layer, and they said no, and that tells us something about the Iranian government, that they were willing to turn down a deal that generous, that ridiculous, by the way.
Well,
If they
technically,
said, yeah,
they said they just wanna continue negotiating, right? You never turn down a deal. You just say, "Well, let's negotiate more."
well, if there wasn't an immediate yes, boy, I'm glad to take that. After the 12-day war and after all that had transpired in between, they knew the implicit threat that could come from America and Israel in an attack, and so by turning down even the offer of free uranium, then you could say, no, these people are insisting on having a nuclear program, to some extent at least. You could say that that was a bottom line from them, that they wouldn't go wobbly on. Well, then that serves as a justification, and so it was a setup for a justification for this war. Although it would have been far better if Mr. Trump had explained to the American people all the, like I said before, Ronald Reagan, when he invaded the small island of Grenada, I mean, it was a small island of Grenada, and it's true the communists had taken over there, but even a small island, Ronald Reagan went to television screens and told the American people exactly what we were doing, why we were doing it. And if that's important to do, even when it's a small island that goes communist and you're pushing back, think of how much more important it would have been for Mr. Trump in terms of getting support and so forth for this war for the American people. But Trump being the forever deal maker, negotiator, I can make a deal with anyone. He wants to keep himself open and flexible and so forth. And people say, "Oh, what a great thing that is to be such a pragmatist and to be so flexible about the possibilities." I don't like that when it comes to the main goals of a war where people are dying. You want the objectives to be clear. But you see, if he laid out clear objectives like his generals did, then you'd be able to see that right now your objectives have simply not been met. Simply not met.
Well, one thing, not to be such a dark thunder in the light, but one thing also that worries me, Jim and Daniel, you tell me if I'm on the wrong track here, is the president's, I don't know if you can describe it, but to me, I would say egalitarianism. That is, look what's happened in Cuba. There's been no real condemnation of the socialist regime, criminal regime that's there. It's just palatable now that seemingly the U.S. gets a cut and gets to kind of somehow micromanage what's going on there. And I wonder again with the deal in Venezuela. Thank you, in Venezuela. And similarly now in the Middle East, like any agreement that is the attitude that, well, we'll do a deal with anyone as long as it's a good enough deal, like that, you would deal with somebody who deals with their own people by shooting them in the thousands or hanging them because they happen to be into dudes, or forbidding grown women from, or any women from being out without their minder or without their correct clothing on. I mean, like, to deal with such a regime, as if they're reasonable people, I don't know. It seems to kind of this isn't, these aren't people who, what was Rand's line? There are no conflicts among rational men. These are not rational men.
These are not rational men. We have a conflict of it. Are you going to stop yelling death to America and death to Israel? Are you going to recognize America and Israel's right to exist? This is an evil entity, and this entity has to be uprooted. And you have to have people that are willing to completely change. A leopard has to completely change his spots here altogether for it to even be valid to negotiate with them. There are no shared values. There are no shared interests. There are no shared principles. All they're trying to do is avoid further pain, and they'll say anything. When it's as simple as I was a prosecutor for me. Simple as a bar fight. The big guys got you on the ground, and he's about to smash you over the head with a bar stool, you'll say, okay, yes, peace, 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 peace. How do you know that that person on the ground is actually not looking for his next opportunity to bash you over the head? You don't. You can't. They have to change so fundamentally that these are not good faith negotiators. As I say, they're not, if they're not willing to officially admit that they're even in negotiations with you, how can you trust them at all? I mean, but the fact that Trump is negotiating is sickening to me. You haven't come close to reaching the stated military objectives of this operation. And now you're going to pause to negotiate because of the Strait of Hormuz and the price of oil. Well, they've got you, and you're letting them get you. And you're saying, yeah, you've got me. You've got leverage on me. And, you know, if George W. Bush after 9/11 says, look, we won't hit your hospitals and your schools, all you're telling Islamists out there is, well, put your military stuff under hospitals and schools. And that's promptly what happened. And I fear precisely the same thing here. Well, you've blackmailed the Strait of Hormuz, and therefore let's cut a deal. So we cut a deal with truly evil people who can't be trusted. So what's going to happen once they get their act together again? They'll threaten the Strait of Hormuz. And it makes zero sense to me to negotiate with evil at all. But you see, Ayn Rand and Objectivism suggest you don't negotiate with dictators ever, that they're not trustworthy negotiation partners. If some individual or company wants to trade with them, they do so at their own risk, and don't expect help from America if you negotiate, if you do business with these people.
There's somewhere, Jim, I remember in her writing, she talks about negotiating with terrorists. And I don't remember where, but she says something to the effect of, like, if you make a promise to swap for hostages, get the hostages and then go ahead and bomb them.
Precisely. The only kind of negotiation would be, again, a giant head fake where you lie, get the hostages out, and then blow them to smithereens for having taken hostages. That would be the only justification that I can think of. And of course, in wartime like this, when someone's holding you hostage, when someone is killing you, you have every right to lie. Completely lie. Deceive them. Tell them, oh yes, we'll negotiate and we'll find a date and a spot to do it, make sure their leaders are all there, and then blow up that spot. It's perfectly appropriate when someone's shooting at you to completely lie to them about where you are and what you're going to do.
Or if they have you hostage. I remember in one of Dr. Peikoff's podcasts, he was asked about prisoners of war and, isn't it terrible that they're made to say, oh, I hate America and America is a terrible country. And, Dr. Peikoff, and I'm obviously paraphrasing, but as I remember him saying, you say whatever they want. You do whatever you have to do to survive and get out.
I would. There's no question about it. I'm not a Kantian when it comes to lies being intrinsically wrong. No, when someone's got a gun pointed at your head, lie through your teeth to get out of the situation. Say whatever the bad guy wants you to say. There's the famous play and movie Man for All Seasons, where Sir Thomas More shows his integrity by refusing to take a certain oath because he has strict religious beliefs about that oath. But if someone's threatening to behead you, you have every right, Thomas More, to tell Henry VIII, oh, I love your marriage. Oh, yeah, I'm a Protestant. Well, what else do you want me to say? I would not. Objectivism does not believe in self-made martyrs. Objectivism allows for the context when someone's got a gun pointed to your head saying, lie, say whatever it will take to get you out of there. And then when you get to a position of safety, blast them to smithereens, destroy the system itself. That is the rational approach, obviously. Evil people who are doing violence to you don't deserve your honest, you put it this way, the honest thing to do would be to just lie to them and put them off their guard. The reality-based thing to do would be to set them up. Exactly.
We have a super chat from Paul. Thank you so much. So guys, have you heard about Trump releasing some of the sanctions when it comes to Russian oil. So it looks like Ukraine is actually enforcing snapback sanctions.
Yeah.
So this is from yesterday, I believe. Ukraine had hit a port that reportedly exports, I think, 1 million crude oil a day. And
Wow.
so yeah, actually reinforcing some of the sanctions, in a kinetic way. Let's call it that. Kinetic sanctions is what I
Well,
like to call it.
when we think of international law here, that is, after all, international law. And by the way, Ukraine is under attack by Russia. They have every right to do this. The worst thing would be someone like Mr. Trump coming along and saying, well, we release the oil. You're only putting greater pressure on world oil prices. Yeah, too bad. This is war. This is war. We're not going to let the Russians collect a dime of revenue while they're bombing us. How about that?
And I'll just throw in from a practical perspective that for most states, the biggest element, the biggest cost in the gallon of gas that you're buying isn't even crude oil. It's local taxes. That's the biggest component of what we ultimately pay at the pump. But there's no talk of that. Like, oh, let's see if we can rein in our spending here, local officials, and cut the gas tax. No, like they wouldn't even think of that or try to find a way for that.
I live in California, Jonathan. You have struck me to the very core of my being. Before
I feel like there should be some automatic mechanism set in place for this, because like if the price of oil goes up like 40%, that also means like 40% more tax revenue from that specific like selling gas, right? So I feel like there should be almost a mechanism that in a sense not a I assume it's a percentage that like if you buy gas it's a percentage. I feel like it should be like a capita, like it should be 30 cents on top or something like that, if we are going to, so that no matter where the price goes, it's the same kind of revenue. So it when the price goes like really high, it basically doesn't increase the pressure like that much more, right?
It's these environmentalist regulations we have in California. It's the fact that we don't use America. California is an oil-rich place that is systematically, through the course of my lifetime, put off limits any oil, any fossil fuel finding, and put on all these strict, what we call cafe regulations on terms of what kind of petroleum can even be sold at the pump, plus additional taxes on it. So before the war began, one good thing Trump did was to increase energy production through fossil fuels in this country, and there were places in this country that were having dramatically lower gasoline prices, at least at the pump. And California was still way up there at twice that level, even before this war. So what Jonathan said really hits home for me personally every time I try and fill my gas tank.
Somebody said, great idea, Daniel. That was a compromising idea, what I said. Great idea is to remove the taxes altogether. I'm just saying, if you are going to use the have taxes on gas, at least, have it a little bit more pragmatic, have it a little bit more like once the price of oil increases, let's say if it wasn't a percentage, because like if it is a percentage, that means the price of gas increases and then it increases even more because you have to pay even more taxes as a percentage of that increase, right? So if it was automatically lowered, and obviously if it was removed, that would be the best thing. But fundamentally, the biggest problem, because somebody says Democrats won't have for it, but fundamentally, when it comes to taxes, it's always easier to put a tax on like one product or one type of product rather than to increase like an income tax, right? Like it's always much easier to increase, do like a sugar tax or do like a tax on this and tax on this, because you're only targeting a certain population, right? Oftentimes you're only targeting certain people, so you are able to get away with it. It's terrible, but in a sense this is politics, right?
Well, taxes are evil, but it's particularly evil when you tax income, when you tax production, when you attack people's creation of wealth, when you attack the trade itself. So someone's income, and to make it worse, we graduate it. As your income goes up, the percentage goes up. Can you imagine anything more evil? We double and triple tax things. We have corporate tax. We have inheritance tax. I can think of nothing more evil than the double, triple, quadruple taxation that we engage in the American income tax. It is a truly pernicious system that we have. Taxing a particular item is bad enough when it's bought and sold, but to tax income, whether it's personal income, capital gains income, corporate income, inheritance, what you're doing is you're attacking wealth making, the actual creation of wealth and goods and services. The entire nation must suffer. Everyone must suffer if you are taxing production itself. And that's really why I so strongly oppose the income tax. Not to mention, like I say, all these ways in which we double and triple tax people, in the corporate income tax and the estate tax and things like that. Just truly evil.
Yeah, by the way, right now I'm just looking up, and it looks like in Slovakia, half of the price of gas is our taxes.
Yeah.
Because from like 30 to 40% is simply duties. So when something gets imported, and then on top there's we have a 20% VAT value added tax. So 20% on top of that is also.
So all these energy taxes are going to save the world, don't you know, Daniel? By paying higher energy prices, we're ending the threat of greenhouse gases. Color me skeptical across the board, okay? That's absurd. That's absurd. And if anyone is interested in
I mean, funny, maybe although maybe you have experienced this in America as well, because you can drive across state lines, or maybe not from necessarily San Diego, although maybe you can go to Mexico. But something that I've seen people doing in Slovakia is just, because we have high taxes, just go to Hungary and tank there. And funnily enough, because of that, there is now a regulation in many states that you cannot actually put gas in like a canisters. Like you cannot come in and tank gas in canisters.
You reminded me of my proximity to Mexico. You reminded me of when I went. This was decades ago, where you're running out of gas and you're planning a trip to Mexico and you're going to go have some fun in Baja or something. You wait and your tank is, well, let's just wait until we cross the border. Petroleum prices are so much cheaper in Mexico. Let's fill up once we get to Tijuana. We did that decades ago. That kind of thinking. Are you kidding? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and people definitely drive around and shop around and might go, at least where I live in Chicago, might go to Wisconsin in certain cases to fill up. But, you know, taxes are one thing. The Jones Act, which I know we've talked a little bit about, you know, another great example of how, you know, regulation really just kills wealth creation, I mean, it's not just employment, it's just wealth creation writ large, from start to finish. And I'm pleased the president suspended it for 60 days, but this is 100-year-old, you know, noose around the neck of, I mean, Americans, American consumers, American producers, just anyone in America. And if you don't know about it, this is this piece of legislation that requires that trade on, now look it up, but as I understand it, trade on marine ships between American ports have to be on American-made vessels, of which there's no American manufacturers of big ships anymore, with American crew and American coffee and American, everything's got to be American, whatever it is. So there's a very few number of ships that actually fit that bill, and none, as I understand it, that actually transport liquefied natural gas. So that it's not just a 60-day reprieve we need the elimination of that 100-year-old POS regulation.
Exactly. If we need it now for the duration of the war, how about making it permanent? I mean, no natural gas. Jonathan points out right now, of course, it makes it very, puts it in italics, but the same point is true with everything else that gets shipped to America. The port of New York, New Orleans, Los Angeles, San Francisco, they cannot take in anything that doesn't come in on an American ship with an American registration and flying an American flag. Now, how suicidally stupid is that?
Well, the funny thing is, of course, as I understand it, and I'm not a historical expert, but, you know, my Wicca knowledge is surprise, surprise, it was to stimulate domestic shipbuilding and marine travel. It was always in good intentions. Oh, we just want to stimulate American jobs. We just want to stimulate American opportunities. That justifies intervention into what should be free markets and, leads to decade after decade after decade of, yeah, there's growth, but way slower and way more expensive than need be.
Right. Right. It hurts us. It doesn't help us. Uh, and the thing is, all you really can do, even when it does have an effect, is protect one little industry at the expense of all American consumers. Every American consumer has to pay a higher price for imported goods. It actually even impacts exports too, because it's only American ships that can load and unload at the great American ports. And so it's just, can you think of anything more stupid? And in this case, we really makes us very dependent on other people as well. So even if you're protecting, and it doesn't seem to be, did it really stimulate American shipbuilding? No. But even if you're protecting American shipbuilding, American shipping, the American shipping industry, it would even at best only benefit one teeny little segment of the economy at the expense of every other segment of the economy.
Yep. And yeah, and that's also the reason why, but by the way, it's only between the U.S. ports, so like for the ports that go in and outside, which again is a terrible regulation, because sometimes it might be like, now if you are, I don't know, a Chinese vessel or whatever, instead of going, let's say you're delivering stuff or whatever, you're bringing stuff, instead of going, let's say, to LA and then going somewhere north, you have to go to LA, then go back to some other port and then go back in, or more likely you just have more ships, and again that brings up the prices. Although even then, my understanding is that generally when it comes to factoring the prices of like shipping, you can generally assume it's zero. Like apparently the price of like shipping stuff is so low that it doesn't even come to accounting when people like calculate the price of a good, they don't even count the shipping costs, because it's like so negligible.
I could show you some charts, Daniel. I don't want to turn this into the financial news hour, but I could show you some charts, especially recently, that would dispute that, given the literally the cost of shipping itself. There's a couple of indices which actually have been doing quite well.
Maybe there is something
national
recent,
markets, pay attention to Mr. Honig, okay? He's a real expert.
Or maybe those two might be just like a different thing from what I'm understanding, because at least again my understanding was that when it comes to like calculating prices, apparently like if you are going to get, let's say you're shipping something, if you're going to ship it from China or from Africa or from wherever, basically there is no difference in price. Now there might be difference in prices in like which area you are shipping it from, but the distance, or rather the sort of the fact that you are shipping it, in a sense, that part doesn't count into it, because apparently with the development of the big ships with those containers, apparently just the shipping costs are just so low that in a sense it like if you are in California getting something from Wisconsin or Vietnam, in a sense it doesn't matter, because like the fact of the shipping costs are so low that it in a sense it eliminated distance as a factor in basically moving stuff. Like at some point it's almost like if we had a teleporter and we could just get any product anywhere at all times. Like that's
I'm pretty sure it's not a causeless cheat,
not a costless, but essentially zero from what I've heard, like negligible basically.
Interesting.
But again, people should look into this if they wanna. Again, this is something just. I think I've heard it on Yaron Brook's show a couple of years ago. He specifically like had a whole topic on this. But again, maybe something has changed.
One of the bad things, we're saying one of the good things about Mr. Trump is, drill baby drill. One of the bad things about Mr. Trump is his attitude about international trade. I mean, he's not. He doesn't, tariff is his favorite word, and he doesn't see the win-win benefits of trading even with our productive allies. So, yeah. Unfortunately, our current policymakers do not appreciate the mutual benefits of international trade. Let me put it that way.
So we do have a couple clips that I want to go through. But first, I want to. Somebody said Daniel thinks he's so smart. He's very low IQ. Well, actually, I'm very no. It's an interesting comment.
Just personal attacks are a sign that they don't have anything to say in substance to what you said there, Daniel. So
Probably.
As long as it's a super chat, then they can say whatever they want.
Well, it wasn't a super
attack
chat.
me too. I'm attacking my looks. You know, who's that funny looking guy? Please put it in the super chat, and I'll say thank you. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a super chat, and we wouldn't read those kind of super chats actually. So.
Oh well. You have full permission to read any super chats that insult me. With my thanks.
Okay, I quickly looked it up just because I was interesting. So apparently, let's say you're shipping something like a T-shirt. The cost of shipping a T-shirt is 5 cents. So like that's like essentially like to me that's almost zero. Like if you are actually like let's say thinking about importing something from wherever. It basically like removes it as a factor. Like I don't think you like if you have like a $35 T-shirt that you can get on objectivism.co.uk/shop. For example, Nikos Guevara or other shirts.
Nikos Guevara shirts, which have got to be part of your wardrobe. I mean, that will enhance any ensemble, ladies and gentlemen. So you really can't miss those Nikos Guevara shirts. They're gonna go like hotcakes, I'm sure.
So yeah, apparently the price of like shipping that between ports is like 5 cents because of how much stuff you can import at once. So that was basically the point I was making. Like,
right,
it's just so little.
But never miss a chance to sell.
Well, I definitely remember reading about and or hearing about, perhaps at an OCON or some objectivist lecture, how the development of the standardized unit, exactly the container that can go straight from the ship to the truck, like how that revolutionized everything. So Daniel, to your point, I mean, what used to be a totally haphazard system of, you know, no, and it wasn't government that regulated it. It was private, as I understand it, it was private industry and the innovation of a small number of really amazing men and probably women too.
And Bonnie says it has to be in volume, right? I mean, yeah, the fact that we can bring so much stuff, like let's say remember back in the days, right? You get a ship at the port of Hamburg, and then you have people actually bringing the boxes out of the of that port, right? And then, like Jonathan mentioned, you just have a crane that takes the thing from the ship, puts it on a truck, and that truck goes away at the same time or something. That's an insane cut in. Basically time it takes to and the cost.
You wonder how they overcame the longshoremen, who must have had a lot of labor. You know, that what you're saving there is the huge
a lot of lost jobs,
loading and reloading onto to trucks or trains, right? All those jobs, you know.
You have to bring those jobs back, James.
Yeah, exactly. How'd you get that past the labor unions?
Well, hopefully they didn't ask them. Although.
Right.
I feel like I remember some story in that, but I cannot remember. I feel like I remember some specific story with labor unions and specifically shipping in that part.
What's going on with the war, though, Daniel? You surely had some more news for us about.
I don't want to go into war. Well, let's take a look.
Well, who does? But it's the reality of our time, and you know. But that brings a good point. War is not a good thing. War is anti-life. War kills. War is to be avoided. You know, when we have advocated dealing with Iran, what we're acknowledging, however, is Iran's objective threat to all of us. And when the war starts and you see the Strait of Hormuz, for example, being closed down effectively for international trade. That is simply the realization of only part of the threat that Iran actually always represented. When you do go to war, what you want to do, first, avoid war. This is true. But when it comes to an aggressive dictatorship, you really ought to take care of it as soon as possible and as decisively as possible. You want to win that war. And you want to make it so that you have, at least in a long term, no one can perfectly predict the future, at least in a long term way, secured that future. But you win that war and you go all out and you don't end until you achieve victory in that war. The only good thing about a war would be to end it as quickly and as decisively as possible. And everyone benefits from that. Everyone benefits from a good, clear victory. And I'm going to include the Iranian people here. After all, the Islamic Republic are still killing its own dissenters. They're still able to launch missiles. We have not won this war. You have not achieved your ends, Mr. Trump. A 5-day pause could, in my mind, only be dragging this out 5 days. Or it could mean that using the Venezuela model, as I say, there are still hundreds of political prisoners in Venezuela. Is that really a long-term solution to the Venezuela problem? And America, years from now, the Venezuelans will look back, well, you foisted a government on us that kept repressing us. Is that really the long-term solution, Mr. Trump? Similarly with Iran, are you going to foist a continued government on Iran that will just simply...
And it seems like it says, I don't mean to interrupt you, Jim, but it seems like it validates, it sanctions, it says to other Arab states of the Middle East, oh yeah, you can have a country with a Sharia law, and the U.S. will do a deal with it. The U.S. they're okay with that. There's nothing especially bad about Sharia law. There's nothing especially bad about living in literally with a third world mentality towards modernity in the future. In the West, there's nothing bad. There's a deal to be had with anyone, with socialists, with Islamists, and that's what I'm talking about. The egalitarianism. Reagan kind of spelled it out, and we knew why they were evil. They were the evil empire. We knew it was because of their ideas, and I just don't see that with the president. And I hope I do. Prove me wrong.
Even when Reagan was negotiating with Gorbachev, right? And he got the better of those negotiations. But the point is, the part of why he got the better and why it helped bring down the Soviet Union was because he was very clear about them being an evil empire. He was willing to storm out of negotiations in Reykjavik. He was, about intermediate nuclear missiles in Europe. He was able to take a very hardline stance. But Trump goes to Saudi Arabia and says, okay, it's okay, you guys do Sharia law. You do you, we'll do us. Even if you're negotiating, which I think you ought not to do, but even if you're negotiating with some dictator, you don't make it sound like, oh, that's cool. You just keep doing what you're doing. That's no problem with us. No, you have to have. That's why the moral is the practical, especially in foreign policy. You have to make very clear what you find objectionable in the other country. I'm sorry, I don't like the way you treat women in Saudi Arabia. I don't like this Wahhabism you're officially teaching your young people. I don't like it. You guys are rights violators. You're still a dictatorship. Any agreement that we might even have is with this huge caveat and proviso that we really don't trust you. We don't like you. People say human rights and morality are a luxury element in foreign policy. No, they are not. They are not, because there is a causal relationship between how they treat their own people and how, in time, they have to treat their neighbors. Again, I will cite Ms. Rand's article, The Roots of War. It is dictatorship which is the cause of war. Dictatorships are not economically or politically stable entities. They will, when they run out of domestic victims, go after foreign ones. And Iran is a classic example of that. At the end of the day, you cannot have an Islamic Republic, the same Islamic Republic that's been there for the last 47 plus years now, and still hope for something different. They'll still go on yelling death to America. They'll still be pursuing weapons and terrorism and so forth, until and unless there's fundamental change in the government itself.
And I will say, speaking, me sound like I'm a huge Reagan fan, and I'm not, and I know Miss Rand was not either. However, what I remember as a young man was that Reagan often went out of his way, I think, to emphasize what was good about America. He seemingly, not always, but oftentimes, as I remember, kind of emphasized American freedom in the face of Soviet totalitarianism or Soviet dictatorship, and kind of reminded the world, here in America, we're someplace special. We're someplace unique. This is someplace really exciting where anyone can think and achieve and strive and be successful. And that is what America is. So I'd love to hear that from the president as well, not just necessarily demeaning of theocracy and demeaning of Islamism, which there's a hell of a lot to demean, but reminding us what makes America unique. At some point, I know the president made some comments to the effect of, we're nothing special. You don't think we do this, you don't think we do that, but America is someplace special because of its ideas. And I hope the president leans into that in the coming months.
This president has shown a unique ignorance of any aspect of what makes America so great, I'm afraid. And it's been increasing with presidents when we were kids and Reagan would stand up and he would say things like, free trade is the moral thing. America is a wonderful place because you can rise as far as your ability will take you. America is a great place because we have freedom of speech and freedom of religion and civil liberties. That age of American politics, unfortunately, has declined, and that's very, very sad. But, you had Obama saying, you didn't build that. He didn't appreciate capitalism. He didn't appreciate free speech. But this president, and you'd think that a, quote, conservative, when conservative meant an understanding of America's original founding ideals, it was not perfect. I'm not a conservative, but at least they were defending something good about America. Mr. Trump is the product of moral relativism. For him, Reagan could say, look, isn't it a glorious thing that America is a nation of immigrants? Can you imagine a line like that coming out of Mr. Trump's mouth? America is a great place because we represent free trade and how that's going to eliminate poverty around the world. Can you imagine Mr. Trump saying anything like that? No, American political discourse has, unfortunately, during the course of my lifetime, declined very, very distressingly. Everything that when you've got the left demanding censorship and when you've got the right demanding more government intervention in the economy, what's left of American ideals? Very sad, but I have to agree with Jonathan. During the course of my lifetime, Americans have lost an understanding of what made America so great and so special.
So we have a few videos that we want to go through, and we're gonna go start with Tucker Carlson. Oh, and this was actually reposted or posted originally by the Muslim mom. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but it's a British woman that it talks very pro-Islamic from the UK, and she has a British accent, which I think is very disturbing. The fact that somebody like that grew up, as I would assume, grew up in Britain and still hold these terrible ideas. And it's no surprise that she likes Tucker Carlson. But let's take a look what Tucker had to say. And why would a Muslim mom want to repost something like this?
I travel so much that I see it. There's not a single Western city that's thriving. And they're all degrading in exactly the same way.
Is a lot of it just a moral decay? Or is it actually true from everything?
It's a lot of things, but it's self-hatred. Every city.
Crazy.
Every European city, every American city, it's just what people lose their will to live, their will to pass on their culture, their values, their religion to their children, their will to have children. It's all gone. I mean, it's not gone with everybody, but I mean, in the cities, you really see it. It's like the people who built this are long gone and their descendants have fled and they don't care enough to keep it going. There's just a lack of self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
that is disgusting to me, and I have contempt for it. It doesn't bother me to be hated. What really bothers me is when people hate themselves. If you hate
That's well put.
if you hate yourself,
Yeah,
how are you going to treat me?
that's correct.
Oh man, I don't like it. So I notice it because I travel outside the Western world, the white world. I'll just be honest, the white world.
Right.
I travel a lot in the Middle East. It's amazing. It's
Mhm.
amazing. I'm not Muslim, obviously. In fact, I'm like a Christian, flat out Christian. And my ancestors are from Europe.
Mhm.
And so I have nothing in common on that level with the Gulf. But you go to the Gulf and it's incredible to be in a place that has pride in itself, that believes
Correct.
in its religion and culture, that thinks we're onto something. And this is great. Look at what we're doing. We're really proud of this. Those people are happy. They're welcoming of others. They're tolerant of diversity. Like we always talk about
Right.
tolerant of diversity. There's none of that here. Are you kidding? All the whites, we love black people. Then
No,
they run and
no,
move
they
to Bozeman because there are no black people.
Absolutely. Send their kid to the.
Is this like a leftist, like a Carlson arc, and it's like, what the what? And he also said he didn't say Western states. He said white states. Like, what is this kind of thing? Where he's like, what? Western countries are not tolerant enough of what? And then the Gulf states, the Gulf cities are tolerant, are welcoming.
But the outrageous. I mean, there is a relationship between self-esteem in a culture and the confidence level in your culture. But America had a culture of freedom and freedom of religion. Not it's perfectly okay to be proud of whatever it is that you're proud of there out in the Middle East. But what they're proud of in that sense is a savage form of collective mysticism. It does not make them more tolerant. It makes them more aggressive and less tolerant. If it weren't for outside Western pressure, the Islamic world would not be as, quote, tolerant of other opinions as they are now. But for the West, Mr. Tucker Carlson, the Islamic world would not we see little teeny incremental improvements in Saudi Arabia, say, and where do you think that comes from, Mr. Carlson? Now, on the other hand, is there a crisis in self-esteem in the West? Have we failed to recognize the glories of Western civilization? They're not to be found in Christianity, though, Mr. Carlson.
Yeah, because like, what does he think? Like what does he think is the lack of self-esteem in Western cities? The lack of individualism, the lack of capitalism, the lack of entrepreneurship, the lack of people going out and doing the best they can out of their lives. That's not what Tucker Carlson is talking about, and his Christianity.
Right. I mean, you almost get the feeling that Tucker Carlson wants to return to a day when Christians were, putting on the torture rack and burning at the stake, Christian heretics. Okay, there was a lot of confidence in their religious beliefs. They really, really believed it. They believed their Christianity so much that they would, out of love for you to save your soul, torture you and burn you at the stake. It's not Christianity that gave Western civilization over the last 300 years or so anything to be proud of, anything to have self-esteem in. It was the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, free trade. It was our individualism and the glorious things that happened with our economy. And it is only those ideals, actually, which have had any impact in making the Muslim world even slightly more, in the places where it is even slightly more, quote, tolerant. His factual description of the Islamic world compared to the Western world is absolutely absurd. But what's there to be proud of? The fact that your ancestors did come from Europe and that you and your ancestors were Christian, Mr. Carlson? No, we had that for century after century after century. It was called the Dark and Middle Ages. Okay, and when religion began to lose its hold on Western civilization, when we went through an enlightenment, Christian and Jewish culture in Europe and America changed. Why? Because of Enlightenment ideals. And that's what makes our culture objectively superior to the culture that's dominant in the Islamic world, Mr. Carlson. It's not just some kind of collectivist pride in your tribe that is a glory to behold, which apparently is what Mr. Tucker Carlson thinks is so wonderful to look at. See, these people are so proud of their religion that they're willing to what? Yeah. See, it's the very idea of being politically tolerant, and I want to say this very carefully, politically tolerant of different religions and different, peaceful political ideas, that has made the West so great and given them anything to be proud of, to have self-esteem in.
And what a juxtaposition between Israel in the Middle East and every other country that surrounds it. I mean, Israel with
Tucker said Israel is the most the most ugly country he's ever been in. Every single inch of Israel is ugly.
Right. Yeah, even Moses got angry at those, irritating Jewish people, said Tucker Carlson just the other day. I mean, he truly is anti-Semitic, and he truly is anti-progress. He's, more akin to this Patrick Deneen birthright citizen. What he wants Americans to be proud of is their genetic heritage. And what he wants them to be proud of is the soil that their ancestors were buried on, like J.D. Vance's hillbilly ancestors in the Appalachians. That is not the proper source of, it's not a valid source of self-esteem, period.
Where does Miss Rand write about appeal to tradition? Because I feel like one of those things, I'm not in front of my screen now, but I know that at some point there's some illumination of the danger of tradition.
Yeah. Oh, many, many times over. Tradition, look, tradition, we may have inherited some good things from the past and some bad things from the past, but it is not tradition per se that makes them good. She said that in any number of ways and in any number of essays. But in the last speech she gave in her life, she was asked about what troubled her about the moral majority in Ronald Reagan. And she denounced conservatives who were going in a religious direction. And by the way, Tucker Carlson is the fulfillment of all that she feared in that regard, how the right has gone in for religion. She called it the God, family, tradition swamp. That's not where you're going to find real inspiration for Americans, she said. That is a denial of what America is all about. America is about progress, reason. Progressives and liberals have stolen the words progress and liberalism, which actually mean freedom and unlimited future vistas. If you're in love with the past, you're trapped in it. Right? It's the innovator. Ayn Rand, think of what Ayn Rand's whole philosophy is. I mean, her architect in The Fountainhead was a modernistic architect doing innovative things. What we want is a new and better and ever better and ever better future. If we were still mired in the God, family, tradition swamp, we would never have done all the great things that America has done, whether economically, technologically, scientifically, culturally, you name it. You're not going to find it in the God, family, tradition swamp, as she called it. That was my favorite way she had of putting it, Jonathan.
Well, and that embrace now of the traditional American, and can you trace your ancestors back to the Mayflower, and somehow that makes you more of an American, than somebody who fought tooth and nail to get here, to be free. There's that kind of glorification now of tradition, like, well, my wife doesn't work, and we live a simple, it's such a kind of, it's just backward, and of course it's fueled by Christianity. It's just as backward as what the mullahs propose. It's
right.
like moving backward.
Heritage Americans is what they call it. And it's led by these pseudo-intellectuals like Patrick Deneen, who absolutely denounce individualism, free market capitalism, who denounce the Enlightenment explicitly. And this Patrick Deneen guy is the favorite intellectual for who? Vice President J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, when he accepted the nomination for vice president, just a couple of years ago, when he accepted the nomination, he said, America is more than an idea. People don't die for ideas. They die for their families and their land and their soil and their blood, as he pointed to his ancestors who were buried in the Appalachians, hillbilly ancestors buried in the Appalachian hills, and now he's so proud to join them. Look, I descend from Mayflower people. It gives me no greater right to be here in America than anyone else. It is absolutely insane to think that. America is not a place with a born, think of it. The American revolutionaries threw off a king and an inherited aristocracy. For what? Just so these conservatives 2 centuries later can say, no, it's your ancestors that give you a special right to a place. No, we fought to get rid of all titles of nobility, all kings. We do not have an inherited aristocracy in America. The very idea of an inherited aristocracy or nobility is pernicious to the founding ideas of America. What makes it so great in America is that the fact that my ancestors, some of my ancestors came across in the Mayflower is irrelevant, is utterly irrelevant. And that individuals are the only moral agents that can be judged. You're not guilty of the sins of your fathers. You don't get any special credit for the virtues of your ancestors either. It is absolutely anti-American to think that there's something about your ancestry that makes you any more or less American. The most American person I can think of is Ayn Rand, who was born and raised in Tsarist and then communist Russia. And she was more American than any American that I grew up with, I can tell you right now. She sort of defined what America really was all about all along. And she came from the other side of the planet.
Let's take a look a little bit more.
They hate diversity.
They hate it.
And our version of it isn't working at all.
No,
at all. So, but you go to a country like Japan or the Emirates or Qatar or Saudi Arabia, and you see that when people are self-confident.
Wait, is Japan suddenly not the West?
Well, Japan has very strict immigration, as I understand it, and they are very keen to preserve their culture and their population.
They have high suicide rates. Wasn't that one of the things?
Well,
and again, this is not me like shitting on Japan for
when
like
he
no
talks
reason.
self-esteem, he doesn't mean self-esteem. He means collective jingoistic pride. He means tribal pride. So he has replaced the term self-esteem with tribal pride. So he just loves the Middle East, or he just loves Japan, because these are people who do not like alien cultures, alien religions, alien traditions. They are stuck in their own equivalent of the God family tradition swamp. And so he really loves to wallow about in the God family tradition swamp. And it's a kind of tribalist collectivism that he wishes on America. Right? America is to emphasize its Christianity, emphasize its tribalistic, roots and whatever. But that is anti-American. Nothing could be less connected to the ideals that created the United States of America, like the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, or the original founding ideas that helped Lincoln destroy slavery. That kind of Americanism is the exact opposite of the sort of Americanism supported by Patrick Deneen, J.D. Vance, Tucker Carlson. They are just rank collectivists, no better than collectivists from the Dark Ages, frankly, or that you'll hear from tribalists today who want to preserve their cultures intact.
I remember at one point, Miss Rand has a line, again, I don't know where it's from, but she says explicitly that either nationalism or patriotism is not my country, right or wrong.
Right. In fact, if you live in a free society, it's your ability to criticize your government, it's your ability to criticize the status quo, even culturally. All innovators are, and this is, if you haven't read The Fountainhead, ladies and gentlemen, this amazing novel by Ayn Rand, I urge you to read it. All innovation, all improvement, anything that actually makes things get better has to come at the cost of some innovator who has to swim against the current, who has to say no to the way things are done, has to reject the status quo. If that's the whole point of freedom, is to allow people the freedom to think and to act on his creative, individuals to act on their creative thought, to change things. The measure of the morality of your system is its ability to change and improve and get better. And that is the condition, social condition that is required there is freedom. But all these innovators, they have to fight against social inertia. They have to swim against the current. They have to persuade people that the way they've been doing things all along is wrong and we can do it better. We can do it better. We can't be wedded to the past. We can't be wedded to existing ideas, tradition. And if that tradition, let me contrast it, say, with F.A. Hayek's view that tradition has a benefit of the doubt built into it as far as he's concerned, because no individual can know why it is that a certain, say, traditional norm occurred. Long before Adam Smith came along to define the division of labor as an important thing in terms of wealth and productivity, we had a division of labor. And until Adam Smith came along to say, well, that division of labor thing is a good thing and we want to encourage it, people unselfconsciously were developing economics. It's true. But the whole point there is that it was allowing for change. F.A. Hayek would say, no, don't change tradition until you really know that it's what's going on here. Tradition gets a sort of presumptive nod from F.A. Hayek. And so he was in favor of freedom, but not freedom, say, to just bash something because you didn't like the past. And to some extent, no, you don't do it just simply to bash the past. But tradition ought to have some kind of constraining effect on us when we're in the face of innovation. Religious people would say, giving women pain medication when they delivered a child, when they were in labor, was a sin, because after all, that was Eve's punishment in Genesis, was to have labor pains. And so aren't we going against the will of God? They said the same about inoculations. They said the same about street lights. They said the same about traditional conservatives. Religious conservatives oppose change. And you can really hear it from conservative Luddites too, in some of their fears of the internet or artificial intelligence, things like that. I'm not saying that there isn't,
or stem cells.
Exact stem cell, exactly, or in vitro fertilization, or all the amazing things that science and technology can open up for human beings. No, read The Fountainhead, ladies and gentlemen. You'll have an answer to all of these conservatives, whether it's the more mild type like F.A. Hayek or the more tribalistic kind like Patrick Deneen, and all of these people on the New American Right who are in love with tradition. And sometimes it sounds like they'd really prefer going back to the Middle Ages, where Christians did put people on the rack and burn them at the stake for, slight variations of being a Christian heretic. Objectivism is the opposite of conservatism in a very fundamental sense. It is the very opposite. In a way, Ayn Rand had more in common in one sense with the old left. Ayn Rand even said it herself. I was once jealous of intellectuals on the left, even the early socialists, because they at least had intellectual arguments. By her time, she said, I have no reason to be jealous anymore, because they basically chucked in intellectual arguments, even on the left. But, in my own experience is people who come from the left, who are converted into objectivism, tend to be the ones who understand it better at a more fundamental level. Objectivism is the opposite of conservatism in the sense that it does not like this tradition worship, whether of the more mild Hayekian version or the more aggressive tribalistic Deneen versions. Objectivism is the opposite of conservatism. And the most conservative place in the world? It's a place like the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so, of course, that's why Tucker really admires these culturally conservative places in the Middle East, or what gives him some admiration for Japan. Gosh, they protect their culture, you see. They protect their race.
We have a super chat from Roman Viking. Thank you so much. He said, should we think of national pride as a result of good politics and not dogmatic tribalist duty? In essence.
In essence, that's it. My identification with America is not the fact that my ancestors have been here for a while or came across on the Mayflower. I can tell you that. If they'd set up a government just like the previous governments in Europe, I'd feel nothing special in terms of the connection to my country. Nothing at all. It is only ideals that I would fight for, Mr. Vance. You say, well, would you fight for your family? Yeah, I would fight for my family. And do you understand what an idea that represents, sir? The idea of individual liberty. I wouldn't die for my country at all if it was a communist or a Nazi or an Islamist state. No, I'd join the resistance against it. It's not because it's my country or the government that controls the territory on which I live or what the genetics of my ancestry is. I find that perfectly despicable. I am not some barnyard animal that can be judged based upon his breeding. I'm an individual who uses his mind, and the freedom to use my mind is what makes me proud of, to whatever extent I am, quote, proud of being an American. It's because in this country, individuals have been free to use their own minds, to live their own lives, to innovate, to change, to do things their way. That's what makes America great, is its individualism, is the capacity for radical change and progress. That would, I know, rub Tucker Carlson's fur exactly the wrong way, but that shows just how distant he is from my own perspective.
And we have a super chat from Bulmus. Thank you so much. He said, Palestinians made exploding West better. I wouldn't even necessarily say so. I don't like, even when it comes to like dictatorships or evil cultures, they cannot even build destructive stuff. They can only steal or maybe make them bigger. Like Soviet Union or people in the Soviet Union, they didn't invent any even destructive weapons. They simply stole the weapons that the West had and maybe made them bigger.
Well, this is true. They stole ballistic missile technology. They stole the atomic bomb. They stole the hydrogen bomb. They stole all that. You know, Ayn Rand was one of the things that projects she did in the 1940s was a planned project on the atomic bomb, the making of the atomic bomb. She went out to Los Alamos. She interviewed Oppenheimer and General Groves and people there. And one of the things that she observed was, although the Nazis were attempting to build an atomic bomb, and that's what stimulated our atomic bomb program. If they're trying to get it, we better get it. But after talking to the people who actually did it, she came to the realization it's not likely the Nazis could have done this. She doubted the Nazis could have done the Manhattan Project. One of the themes that was going to be built into her screenplay was how only American innovation, American free markets, the freedom to think, actually allowed a scientific, technological, and industrial culture that could have pulled it off as America did. They are normally just parasites, absolutely. But the fact, let's say they make some innovation in the short run, it will tend to be in the area of weapons. Where they do it, it will tend to be a refinement of weapon technology or how to kill people in greater numbers. But even there, freedom is what is the condition for the use of the human mind. When you shut down freedom, you shut down minds, you shut down progress. And if done consistently, you'll find yourself in short order back in a very primitive culture. One of the big differences, say, between George Orwell's 1984, written in 1948, and Ayn Rand's Anthem, written more than 10 years earlier, is that in their future dictatorship dystopias, Ayn Rand realizes that a dictatorship in the long run can only lead to technological decay and collapse. So her dystopia shows them, innovating with candles. That candle was a huge innovation. Whereas Orwell can imagine a technologically sophisticated totalitarian dictatorship surviving in an advanced way into the future. That's a failure to understand the relationship between freedom and the mind.
And in real life, you see that playing out. Like I have a buddy who years ago actually visited North Korea, and even on the government-minded trips, it's like they're one escalator in the building. If it doesn't need to be used, they turn it off. Like they just don't, like everything. They have people sweeping the streets by hand because they don't have machines that can sweep streets. So they have literally people out there sweeping. And my sense is that that technology hasn't improved much in the last 15 or 20 years, even in North Korea. So, right, when you restrict people's ability to think and create and keep the proceeds of their labor and their mind, you're kind of condemning yourself to living in the past, to like the most base menial existence, because you're just hampering the mind and all the products that come from it.
Right. For a long time in the Soviet Union, back when it was the Soviet Union, and there were supposed to be these modern futuristic thinking communists, the form of Darwinian of evolution that was the doctrine for a while was Lamarckian, not Darwinian theory of evolution, which is scientifically wrong. But if you varied from that, if you took something other than the party line, you were squelched, you were shut down. If a country were allowed to do that, and it didn't have to worry about the pesky Western civilization, which was actually engaged in scientific progress and real scientific research, they would have frozen at some earlier stage of scientific development. And in time, they would have regressed. They would have gone backwards. You can see it again and again and again. There can't be a, quote, government line or a, quote, party line when it comes to scientific innovation. But this is true about everything that the human mind does, whether it's philosophy or physics or technology. The human mind is simply shut down. Force and mind are opposites. A censorship will destroy the vibrancy of your culture. If you take censorship seriously, it will shut down scientific progress. And if you don't have private property, then you have de facto censorship. Whereas if people are free to innovate and to profit or take the loss if their innovation doesn't work, then what you're going to do is you're going to encourage radical, fast change towards ever improving lifestyles and ever better ideas.
So the person who super chatted responded, he said, I was being sarcastic. They invented the exploding vest, which actually made me think, what was the actual first suicide attack? I was wondering if there... I was trying to find a Wikipedia article, which I had a problem with it, but now I did find it. And apparently the oldest story that is described as a suicide attack in modern stories is a biblical story of Samson's destruction of the Philistine temple in Gaza in Judges 16:30.
Well, he's sort of executing a punishment upon himself as well. Yeah, he did. He took down the temple of Dagon, as the story goes in Judges, but he was already blinded and shorn of his hair. But his hair grew back, so he could take down
That is always like how sort of suicide, I guess more of a defense than attack, is portrayed in the movies, right? You guys go, I'll hold them back. And that is said by a person who's already like injured and stuff, right? So like, I'll get them, you guys escape. So
yeah, I'm not sure it qualifies as like a modern, suicide bomber that we find so frequently today in the Islamic world. I'm not sure that really counts. Although,
I mean, the definition could simply be, like willingness to employ some attack, some destructiveness with the cost of your own life.
Yeah, we'd have to include surely the kamikaze
definitely.
fighters in World War II. Japanese teenagers were literally throwing their lives away to cause damage to some American ship or something, and they were proud to throw their lives away. Religion does that to people. It makes them have contempt for life on earth. In the Christian tradition going all the way back, martyrs, those who have full contempt for their own lives and embrace their own executions and persecutions with relish, are the real heroes. The martyrs are really high up there in Christian appreciation. If you really have contempt for life as such, starting with your own life, boy, that makes you a hero to the mystics. Remember, just simply the positing of supernatural dimension is going to screw you up. You're going to have a theory practice mind-body dichotomy open up right there. Because we here in this corrupt plane can never really live up to the ideal in this supernatural world, which is really the great escape. Death is the great glorious thing that we're all waiting for. And if some persecutor wants to help me get there, well, he's helping me get to this higher dimension. And so you find this contempt for life on earth that emerges from mysticism. They're part and parcel with one another. You believe in the supernatural, you're a mystic, you will have a corresponding contempt for life on earth. A corresponding contempt for life.
I saw a really interesting documentary over the weekend. I believe the title is Mr. Nobody versus Mr. Putin, or versus Vladimir Putin. Basically, it gives a kind of behind the scenes look at the war from the perspective of kind of a small town in Russia, and to see that fervent nationalism where, these young people, 17, 18 are, being shipped off and having their heads shaved and going to the front lines, and having their whole futures taken by force. This isn't, they keep asking these kids, did you volunteer or were you conscripted? And they were all conscripted. And, being going to, basically become cannon fodder for Vladimir Putin and the glory of Russia and the glory of the nation. And it's that same, if you think, oh, wow, these Islamists, they're so stone cold crazy. Just look at Russia. I mean, there's that same nationalism, that same, my country, right or wrong, the glory of the old Soviet Union days. I mean, if you query a lot of Russians, they seem to revel in that. And not to rag on Russia too much, but I think they deserve it. And it makes me think of what was said to Miss Rand as she was leaving Russia. It's a quote that I always think of. And Jim, I'm sure you remember this one. Someone said, "Tell them in America, Russia is a cemetery and we're all slowly dying." You remember that quote?
I do.
Maybe I'm butchering it a tiny bit, but that hasn't changed in 100 plus years because the ideas haven't changed.
You got it. There was a farewell party. It was a small, humble thing because they were practically starving to death. But there was a farewell party for Ayn Rand as she was leaving for America. And an older gentleman caught her and said, "Tell them that Russia is a giant cemetery and that we're all slowly dying." And evil governments, take pride in that dying. The Nazis were even more explicit about self-sacrifice and the need for self-sacrifice than the communists were. What a glorious thing it is to give your life for the Aryan race or for the German Volk. Because after all, it's your one little life is irrelevant. Everything that makes America great, and you hear on the conservative right in America, even when you hear echoes of that kind of, oh, well, he gave his life to some noble cause. If it did not advance the cause of liberty, then and fighting off a dictatorship that was after America, then it was not a glorious thing in itself. It's not a glorious thing to give your life to something, quote, greater than yourself. At root, that is the moral ideal that it causes people to go out and sacrifice themselves, treat their own lives with total contempt. And when I hear American commentators talk like that, it's absolutely horrific to me. It's enshrining the Christian martyr, the kamikaze suicide bomber, the jihadist suicide bomber, the devoted Nazi who's going to give his life for his country. No, I'm not going to throw my life away simply on some symbolic reason. I'm going to rationally risk my life if a life and death value is itself at risk. The value of the individual life and the value for living at peace, apart from that, is what is worthy of fighting for, ladies and gentlemen, and taking rational risks for. It's the very opposite of sacrificing yourself for something greater than yourself.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this one to Daniel the other day. I at one point I had a retail site on my website, capitalispig.com. I had a little retail area. It was kind of that time. You had a little, and I sold Dr. Peikoff's book about the ominous parallels along with an actual Nazi coin. And what was interesting, Jim, is what was inscribed on the perimeter of the Nazi coin. And I don't know it in German, but in the translation was, the community comes before the individual. That was on their money. That was inscribed on their money. I thought, wow, what an amazing example of true collectivism on every little Deutschmark that was in these people's pockets.
Du bist nicht. Das Volk ist alles. You are nothing. You are nothing. The people is everything. And that was one of their mottos, the Nazis. And that summarizes everything that's evil with dictatorship. It summarizes the evil that the philosophy of altruism is and the collectivism it leads to. It's a horrific kind of unearthly mysticism that treats life on earth with total contempt, encouraging people, young people, to throw their lives away for some mystical ideal. And collectivism is just another form of mysticism. There is no Volk. There is no capital S society. There's only Jonathan and Jim and Daniel. And anyone who tells you that each life is not an end in itself, a precious, irreplaceable value, that is an end in itself. Anytime someone tells you that that is something that can be treated with contempt and ought to be sacrificed, run for the hills, because those are the monsters. Those are the monsters behind all dictatorship. Those are the monsters ultimately behind all war. If you do not place the individual life as being your highest value politically, you've got to that extent, you've got a screwed up social and political system, my friends. Only a system that treats the individual, each individual life, as an end in itself, as the moral good, is a moral social system, in my view. The reason why I think America has worked so well, and the reason why I'm so grateful to live in America, is because it is the place that came closest, at least at one point, in approximating the true reverence for individual lives, which is the foundation for any moral state.
Let's take a look at a little bit more on Tucker.
When they're really pleased with what they're doing and they believe that their system is the right system, that self-confidence results in a kind of welcoming attitude. Mm-hmm. So you'll be sitting at dinner in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and you'll say, you know, I'm really kind of pro-Jesus, like I'm a Christian. They'll be like, oh, that's so great.
And they don't have the same.
Well, they mean it.
And they don't have the same belief.
No, they're Muslims.
They're Muslims.
It's a country governed by Sharia law.
Right.
I mean, and they're like, that's great.
Good for you. Yeah.
It's great. And you notice like in ISIS or Al-Qaeda or like the Muslim extremists, they're all from like collapsed, pathetic societies dominated by colonial powers. They've been degraded. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're so angry. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's something about being degraded that turns you into a violent nutcase extremist. You're seeing a lot of violent nutcase extremists in our country. Not surprising, because the country's being degraded.
Correct.
So in a country with self-confidence, people are tolerant and open-minded and happy. And in a country where people are told to hate themselves, they start to hate others. Duh. This is all like very obvious, but I only know that because I've traveled a lot. Mm-hmm. And I am naturally open-minded. Mm-hmm. Like, just because you don't do it my way doesn't mean it's bad. Like, I really feel that way, where they're into things that I'm not into, like, I don't know, polygamy or Islam. And I can sort of look at it and be like, no one's forcing this on me. I'm not mad at you for being a polygamist. I think it's really hard. But whatever, leaving that aside, but I can go to a place like that and I don't feel like I need to judge everybody on their local custom.
Okay, like, again, like, a lot of stuff isn't necessarily wrong, but I feel like it's disconnected from the actual thing. Like, obviously.
It is a factually false description of the Islamic world. The more seriously you take your mysticism, the more you're going to force others to agree with it. Sharia law is a great example. The only kind of freedom and tolerance that exists in the Middle East and among the Islamic world has come from the Western Enlightenment view of individualism. Self-esteem is a very, very important thing, Mr. Carlson. There's no question about it. But if your self-esteem is a tribal one, then you're demanding that young people throw their lives away in this glorious cause of collectivism. But to say that the Islamic world today is somehow tolerant outside of individualist Enlightenment values of freedom of the mind. Okay, that's the opposite of the conservatism. So for him, self-esteem is a collective pride, a tribal pride. He's not using the word self-esteem in its correct, individual self-esteem. What he's talking about is collective pride, tribalistic, jingoistic, chest beating. I belong to this collective kind of pseudo pride. That's what he means about confidence. And that kind of confidence, it's true. If Islam ruled the world, they would be much more likely to tolerate your private belief so long as you couldn't worship it in public, such as the Islamic world treats other religions today. Try being a Jew or a Christian there, Mr. Carlson. But he thinks that's swell because we ought to have apparently the same kind of collectivistic intolerance in the United States. Pride in America being a Christian nation, and America enforcing its Christianity and tossing out, say, Muslims. Well, that would show him that America has self-esteem in its Christian roots, and that would be a good thing. Now, what he's doing is he's slopping two things together. The real confidence that comes from self-esteem, which can only come from an individual, and an individual freedom is what's really required. If I'm not free to act on my own judgment, I'm never going to be able to achieve real self-esteem. Self-esteem requires my independence of thought and action. That independence, moral independence, is predicated on me being politically free to do so. And so, no, every country, to the extent that it is not free in that individualistic way that Mr. Tucker Carlson really doesn't like and has contempt for, is precisely to the extent to which you're going to have tribal fights. No, the idea, it's true that there is today a sort of mystic solidarity. The Enlightenment put religion in such a crisis that, as I was saying earlier, within the Christian world, they were at each other's throats. Within the Muslim world, they were at each other's throats for slight doctrinal differences. You're a Shia, you're a Sunni, therefore you're a total heretic and you're the enemy. Or you're a Protestant and you're a Catholic. Well, you're the enemy, you're the real bad guy. That kind of collectivistic identification is not a kind of self-esteem. But that is the inevitable result of the kind of, quote, self-esteem that he is advocating. Now, it's true, though, that in the post-Enlightenment world, mystics are sort of starting to hang together because they realize that all mysticism since the Enlightenment has come under a great deal of stress. And so they have much less of an argument with other mystics. Today, Catholics and Protestants get along far better than they did once upon a time. And indeed, when faced with Western civilization, Shia and Sunni are willing to put aside their differences. The de facto leader of Al-Qaeda has been harbored. Al-Qaeda has been harbored in Iran for more than 20 years now. So they're happy to work together when they're working against civilization. This is why the Pope, say, has more in common with Islamic mystics than he does with, the real American individualist attitude. So there's a growing mystic solidarity, but don't be deceived. If that threat from the individualistic, rationalistic Enlightenment West were to recede, they would go back to their old tribal ways. Look, you can't, when the debate is between Catholic and Protestant, or between Christian and Islam, or between Sunni and Muslim, reason cannot answer the debate. There's no rational basis on which to resolve their disputes. They have to use force. Persuasion is not available to them because there is no rational answer. Faith and force, and I'll read another great essay by Ayn Rand, Faith and Force, Destroyers of the Modern World. Faith and force are natural allies, and always are, and always have been, and always will be. Reason and freedom are natural allies. They require one another. The operation of reason requires the social condition known as freedom. And if I know I've got the right argument, I can persuade you. Reason's on my side. Reality's on my side. I can win in a world where persuasion is the competition. Okay, if you can't win when reason and persuasion is the competition, all you've got left are clubs and guns and tactile ballistic missiles. And if you're a parasite off Western technology to that extent. So believe me, Mr. Carlson, if you were to reject individualism and freedom, and the individual freedom that goes with that, you're setting up a situation in which the future will be nothing but tribal warfare.
Jonathan?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything Jim has said, and I see it in so much of conservatism now that I see. There's as Rand kind of foresaw, there's a real emphasis on religion now explicitly. I mean, even one of the papers, Vanity Fair or whatever, had a comment how Christ is King is the kind of the new calling card among conservatives now. There's kind of an acknowledgement and really upping the Christ, and it's really it's really disappointing to see for any number of reasons. But especially when you're trying to argue against religious mysticism in the Middle East. Israel is not a mystical country. Israel is really a secular country. Now, I know it's a so-called Jewish state, but this is a country where there's all different types of religion, and my guess is a majority of atheists anyway. So I'm concerned and I'm disappointed that American conservatism, of all the things they could be picking up and embracing in recent years, are embracing religion in a way that I haven't seen it so explicitly in my lifetime.
I agree. There are rabbis who will tell you it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or not. Oh, well, you basically, and no, the reason why we need a Jewish state is because of the comparative secularism and capitalism that Jewish people have been associated with, that results in anti-Semitic violence. People hate Jewish culture. Christians and Muslims hate Jewish culture to the extent they're serious about their Christianity and Judaism. Why? Because they associate precisely because they associate Judaism with secularism, intellectualism, capitalism, and that's why we need a Jewish state, is so that people who have been systematically persecuted because of their comparative secularism and their comparative capitalism have been under systematic attack. When Christians couldn't charge interest in the Dark Ages, it was that greedy, evil Jewish banker. And so he becomes the Shylock character in Merchant of Venice, who wants his pound of flesh. Mwah, ha, 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 ha. Okay, these attitudes go back, deep roots in both Muslim and Christian society. So, yeah, boy, is that why we need a Jewish state, is because the Jews are specifically picked on for their comparative secularism and capitalism. They represent everything that, real fundamentalist Christians and Muslims don't like. Now, I reject Judaism. I reject Judaism. Look, I don't even come from a Jewish background, but the religion of Judaism, the following the Torah, I reject that. Believe me, I'm not defending Judaism per se. What I'm saying is, and in history and politics, the three important words, compared to what? What I'm defending is the comparative secularism, the comparative capitalism you'll find, say, among Jews today. Frankly, I more identify with those elements than I do with any kind of Christian or Islamic fundamentalist elements, which is precisely what Tucker Carlson is defending in this conversation. Isn't it wonderful how the fact that they're so confident in their Islam that they could say, oh, isn't it great that you're a mystic too in your Christianity? Trust me, Mr. Carlson, if they ever got power over you, they would treat you like dirt, or worse than dirt, until they'd completely conquered you and enslaved you. At least that's Islam's track record.
So let's finish with what he had to say.
I just don't feel that need. But in the process of doing that, like you get perspective on your own society, and the core problem is a loss of faith in our people, in our values, in our religion. Just don't believe anything. I don't care what you tell me. Like, I'm noticing that New York City has people shitting on the sidewalk or having sex in ATM vestibules, and people are dying of drug ODs on the street and their carjackings. You're telling me it's thriving. I was just there. It's not.
It's
Like,
not
I don't care
thriving.
what stats you throw. Well, according to the American Academy of Bullshit, it's actually the best it's ever been. Really? I was there
Yeah.
last week. It's not. All I'm saying is let's treat the people who run the banks, the people who are getting rich from usury, like the criminals they are, and make them suffer, because that's totally fair. If you exploit and destroy people, you're not a good person, and we should just say that. And I think we should start by getting collective action. Everybody who's deep in credit card debt, I don't care what your race, it would be actually a way to unify the country. We're just going to have this month, we're all getting together, and we're not going to pay our credit card bill.
That
What do you
would be
think of that,
amazing.
bitch? What are you
That
going to
would
do
be
about
amazing.
it? But your average person can't do that. So why don't we all get together and do that? You know what would happen if we did that? I'd be assassinated immediately just for saying that.
So just a heads up, the people who have a high credit card bill, they have it because they don't pay it. That's the reason. So you are already expected not
The
to pay
guy
for it.
advocates communism in the name of Americanism.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. What a betrayal of everything that America stands for coming out of his mouth. No, it is capitalism. See, we really get to it now. It's freedom, individualism, capitalism that he really hates. And faith is what the only answer. Faith in yourself as a collective people. Faith in your religion. That's what he really wants. And of course, Christianity is perfectly, and he's grown more consistent. Christianity in its original doctrine is perfectly inconsistent with capitalism, getting wealthy, charging interest, usury is the thing he said. So what he advocates is sort of a socialist general strike against credit in this country. Can you imagine anything more destructive of the economy? But more than that, Mr. Carlson, in the true sense, imagine anything less American.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that could come straight from Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, straight from their mouths. This is, it's funny too. I mean, Tucker seems to live in an America where Christians are constantly persecuted. Where everywhere you look, Christians are being persecuted. And I mean, I don't know. I just don't see it. I mean, I don't hang in a lot of those circles, but it seems to me like America's a fairly pluralistic country. I see lots of churches. I see lots of synagogues. I see lots of mosques. I see lots of weird, like, ishram things with people doing chants and seances and stuff. So, he just seems to live in an America that, everywhere you go, Christians are being persecuted and they're being for their beliefs, and they're being, I don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Well, we see what he wants is the government to actively promote a certain kind of religion. And if the government doesn't, then we obviously lack, quote, self-esteem in our own culture. What we should take pride in is not freedom and the great advances that capitalism has made possible. No. We should take pride in is our collective beliefs as Christians. The very opposite of anything that America stood for, the very opposite of what the motivating ideal of the First Amendment. No, he wants prayer in schools. He wants the 10 Commandments back in schools. He wants religious education. He wants religion to be promoted, and he wants a specific kind of religion to be promoted. He wants that to affect public policy on abortion or a host of other scientific matters. No, what he wants is a government that would force his view of Christianity down everyone's throat, which is the exact opposite of Americanism. But that would display the appropriate, quote, pride and self-esteem that he wants. So what he wants us to do is to, in our own religious way, imitate and echo the intolerance of the Islamic world. The intolerance of the Islamic world is what he equivocates with having any kind of patriotism or national pride. Wow. No one could be more further away from me than him. And I include socialists. Because what is he advocating? A kind of socialism. He's advocating a kind of socialism that is sort of religiously motivated, against usury, charging interest. So that we can all, he's advocating a kind of communist revolution, or at least a socialist general strike, right? And so he ends up at the same place Elizabeth Warren does, only with a religious justification. But whether it's the neo-mysticism of Marx or the good old-fashioned old-time religion of Christianity, it's mysticism that is always behind this, isn't it? Talk about faith and force being natural allies. No, the answer is reason and freedom. The answer is individual freedom, and reason is our only means of knowing and surviving.
And what's so frustrating, frankly, is that I feel like the old Tucker Carlson, the libertarian Tucker Carlson of his Crossfire days, would point to what effect such sort of legislation or regulation would have on credit availability in the United States, on and he would probably even have a word for maybe the righteousness or the morality of those credit card companies who are providing a legitimate service that people use. And but what a complete transformation seemingly in ideas. And I don't know what's changed for him. I don't know if it's financially motivated, if there's been some revolution. But Jim, something tells me that your ideas are probably pretty much the same as they were 25 and 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You haven't had a major, right. I mean, and Tucker has done a complete 180 on so much.
No. My values haven't changed in many decades. I've learned a lot. My understanding of things is dramatically sophisticated, but as I understand it, but my fundamental values haven't really changed. Mr. Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, he says, I grew up in Southern California. I think he comes from La Jolla, which is not too far from me here, where he grew up, liberal Protestant Episcopalian. Religion isn't very, it was mostly a social gathering where his family, would get together at the, local Episcopalian church. He has had a religious conversion. He has said that he's used to dismiss fundamentalist Christians, and now he's gotten more in touch with fundamentalist Christianity, and now he's having supernatural experiences. Demons are attacking him in his sleep, literally, because he now takes religion more seriously. I cannot but imagine that has had a dramatic relationship to why he respects Islam so much more. It's this mystic solidarity. Boy, they too are serious about their religion. So I think what happened in Tucker Carlson's development is that he had a kind of religious conversion. He takes religion a whole lot more seriously than he did once. He admits he was a Christian, but one of these, it's Episcopalian. It was more of a social gathering on Sundays than it was really a religious exercise. And from that sort of wishy-washy Christianity, liberal Protestantism, he's converted to a much more fundamentalist version of Christianity. And now, of course, he's being attacked by supernatural entities, demons in his sleep. And this makes him skeptical of technological progress. It makes him skeptical of economic progress. It makes him skeptical of freedom and individualism. Faith and force really do go together. And so as he's had his sort of fundamentalist conversion, and he's started taking his Christianity a whole lot more seriously, you see the political and social impact on his thinking. It has had a direct impact on his thinking. He has rejected his, quote, libertarian past, in effect. He's rejected that altogether. And he's become an advocate of a socialist general. No, just him. Yes, of course. The economist in his brain would be thinking, yeah, of course, I'm destroying the availability of credit for everybody. I'm not doing anybody any favors. What I'm doing is I'm going to make, credit availability much, much less at the end of the day. Well, good. Then we'll tighten our belts and we'll live a more humble, simple, maybe more Amish way. Because after all, economic progress or scientific progress, they're not really the values. They're not important values in his mind. What's really important is being true to your, religion, and that's what's motivating his brotherhood of mystics, combined, brotherhood of cultural conservatives around the world combined. Mystics of the world unite. If I can change Marx a bit. So he's not a, Marxist in that sense, but in a sense, he's advocating Marxist type behavior, like attacking capitalism in the name of what? Tradition and fundamentalist religion. The two go together.
We have a super chat from Bonnie. Well, we do have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. She says, there is nowhere else like this on the planet. Thank you so much. But we have an earlier super chat from Ina. Thank you so much. She says, or they say, USA is more wealthy now than in 1776. People who came on Mayflower materialized the idea and created wealth. Don't they have a little say in it?
Well, wait. The folks that came across the Mayflower and who colonized New England were themselves Puritan religious fanatics who would hang witches and ran a theocracy and had a kind of totalitarian vision when they came to America, a religiously motivated totalitarian vision. That failed utterly. And those puritanical aspects of American culture had to be rejected in favor of the first explicitly secular government in world history, where we have the First Amendment proudly says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, any religion. And it was that freedom, the freedom of the mind, and the property rights and economic liberties that go with that caused America to develop. It was any say in it. No, I don't have any say, greater say than any other American has in my government. Because my ancestors were here for longer. How on earth does that sheer accident that I am descended from puritanical theocrats, right? They were trying to escape the religious persecution that they were facing back in Europe. That's true. But it's not the puritanical theocracies that were the foundation for American greatness. No. It was the Enlightenment ideals of reason and freedom that made America great. And I don't have any greater say in my country. In fact, there's a danger to democracy as such. What the government must do is limit itself to its sole function, protecting individual rights. And individual rights can only be violated by some kind of coercion, one person coercing another. Government exists simply to render all human action voluntary. And it's voluntary trade and voluntary interaction, people pursuing their own happiness, that caused America to be great. Individualism. America represented a liberal ideal of the Enlightenment. And it's that idea that Mr. Carlson and Mr. Deneen are fighting so hard. That is what they find to be the enemy. And no, I don't have any greater say in my republic than someone who arrived just yesterday to become a citizen because my ancestors have been here for 400 years. No.
Somebody says usury is a specific term. It is not capitalism or loans. I mean, isn't it very ill-defined? Like usury means when the interest rate is too high or something like that. But again, by what standard do you define when something is too high?
We've mushed up the definition of usury to mean confiscatory interest rates. But once upon a time, we understood that Islam and Christianity is consistent here. Charging interest on loans is what they meant originally. This is why.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Tucker means.
Yeah, and that's why banking became dominated by Jewish people until the Catholic Church loosened up and looked the other way at the games the Medici bankers were playing. Yes, bankers in Florence and Genoa began to thrive during the Renaissance. Why? Because the Catholic Church compromised on the idea of usury. And they allowed these, fancy explanations about why it wasn't really charging interest. But get right to the core of what Christianity is saying. Christianity says wealth is dangerous. Wealth is bad. The rich young man comes up to Jesus and says, what do I need to get into the kingdom of heaven? Jesus says, have you obeyed the commandments? He says, yes. Well, one more thing, give all your money to the poor. And the rich young man walks away, And what does Jesus say as a follow-up? It is as difficult for a rich man to get into heaven as it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle.
Didn't he say it's more difficult?
More difficult, yes. More difficult. Thank you for the correction. St. Paul said, the love of money is the root of all manner of evils. Jesus said, don't worry about what you wear, what you eat. You see, life on earth is blessed are the poor. Poverty, if you're poor, you're the lucky one, not the rich guy. Fortunate are the poor. The mitzvah is being poor, not being rich, if you understand what Jesus was literally saying. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. They're the lucky ones. You know, St. Paul said it's a great thing if you're a slave. And better than that, if you have a harsh slave master, you're particularly fortunate because that's a salvation opportunity to show how much contempt you have for this world. So be a happy slave if you have a harsh slave master and have contempt for your life. So money is bad. That's why monks through the Dark and Middle Ages took vows of poverty. Poverty was a good thing. Blessed are you if you're poor. Give away all your money. Don't worry about what you eat, what you wear. It's this life on earth that Christianity explicitly has contempt for. Based on that philosophy, you're not going to achieve material progress on this earth. That's not what Christianity is about. Christianity is about throwing this life away in favor of the promised next supernatural life, which of course doesn't exist. These ideological systems are simply designed to get people to have thorough contempt for their own lives, the very opposite of self-esteem. Some collective pride in your religiously defined tribal group is what matters, because it's, after all, your future in some supernatural dimension is what counts. But all of these modern contemporary Christians are total. I mean, you put the ordinary Christian from the 21st century in a time machine, send him back 400 years, he'd probably be burnt at the stake for being the monstrous hypocrite that they really are. Christianity has contempt for wealth. Christianity has contempt for material progress here on earth. Poverty is the blessing. Okay? Being a contented slave to a harsh slave master is a salvation opportunity, because after all, in the kingdom of heaven, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. Okay, get it? Christianity has contempt for life on earth. Nothing could be more opposite from objectivism. In fact, Ayn Rand, before she gave her philosophy the name Objectivism, had just thought of it in her mind in a working way as a philosophy for living on earth. She understood that merely positing a supernatural dimension was degrading to humanity. It's not just a false idea. It degrades humanity and shows contempt for life on earth. It builds a wedge between the real and the ideal, between theory and practice, between mind and body. And so it's not about your happiness, prosperity, and thriving here on earth. No. It's about enduring this veil of misery. And the more misery you can put up with, the more brownie points you get in the next dimension. That is what Christianity says if we go by the New Testament.
Yeah, and I mean, again, somebody says it is designed to ruin people, not to fuel the economy. Well, the purpose of like giving people loans shouldn't even be to fuel the economy, some weird reason like that. It's, you know, somebody wants to lend money supposedly to make money of interest, and somebody wants to borrow money for some of their own desire or whatever it might be. Now, I think there might be wrong reasons to take loans and wrong reasons to give loans. Like if you are going to take loan so you can go on a nice vacation or go have a nice dinner, it's probably a bad idea. Generally, I wouldn't recommend borrowing money simply to consume. You are living above your means for no particular reason, at least. Again, now there might be some higher value that you could make, but I generally would very much be wary. And that's what credit cards for the most part are. People who go into credit card debt are generally using it to basically up their lifestyle beyond the means they have. It is, in a sense, you know, if
there wasn't a government quote safety net, if we didn't have economic regulations designed to protect people from themselves, then they would have to actually think about what's in their actual long-term self-interest. You see, if all human interaction is voluntary, then it will tend to only be where both sides perceive a gain. You know, if you have a new idea, Daniel, but you don't have capital, and I've got capital, and I think, geez, your new idea might profit both of us, then we have a way of mutually benefiting one another. Here, I will give you a loan so that you can develop this idea, sell it, and guess what? I will, because I'm helping to finance you, I will have a long-term gain myself. in helping to finance you, whether it's through loans, your bonds, say, or through purchasing part of the original equity of your idea. The point is, though, that if I've got the money and you've got the idea, it can be a win-win situation for you, me, and all of our potential consumers. When, however, there's the government, I've always got the government to fall back on. The government is there to protect me from my own misjudgments and mistakes. Well, then people are going to be reckless, treat it with contempt, and they get angry at the credit card companies when they live beyond their means.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a super chat from Roman Viking. Thank you so much. He says, have you heard about the reintroduction of alcoholic sale bans in Damascus? So I don't think it's as much of a reintroduction, since it hasn't been there for a long time, not for just like a few years. But yeah, apparently the new Syrian regime wants to implement some, or the government rather, wants to implement some sale restrictions on the sale of alcohol. So the jihadism, or
that surprises us.
Islamism is definitely coming true. And apparently the Damascus, I don't know how you refer to them, are sort of on the, you know, they see it as a threat to their personal liberties, for the government to decide when they can buy alcohol, since as much of a sort of a failed state Syria has been for a long time. I mean, a city like Damascus has been, you know, sort of not necessarily in a similar line of Beirut, but sort of kind of like that, like still a sort of like a city that is, I mean, generally the cities are going to be more progressive, right? Even in the Islamic regimes.
Does that surprise you? I mean, of course. Religion can't help, right? But treat your life here on earth with contempt. It's built in, it's baked into the cake of mysticism, this contempt for life on earth. When I spell out what Christianity originally commanded in the New Testament, I'm just giving you one example. Islam has the same contempt for life on earth, the same contempt for life. It's the same. Why do Hindus, these yogis, emaciate themselves and sit in one place and have contempt for the body? Mysticism necessarily will drive you to have complete contempt for your own body when taken to its logical extent, when left to its own devices. And we see creeping social laws in the Islamic world coming back in any restored government. There's no surprise here. The enemy is mysticism, Mr. Tucker Carlson. In any case, we're reaching the bottom of the hour, and I unfortunately have other things I need to attend to. All I can say, my final thought on Iran and Mr. Tucker Carlson is he obviously loves the regime, would love Mr. Trump to cut a deal so that we can end this senseless conflict between all those wonderful Islamic cultures in the Middle East, for which Mr. Tucker Carlson has such a high respect. And I know he really wishes that America would have the same kind of devotion to their own brand of mysticism, so that they could impose their own kind of social conservatism and perhaps even prohibit alcohol, because it would be all better for our souls, wouldn't it, Mr. Carlson? But in any case, I hope that those forces on the intellectual right are being ignored by Mr. Trump, and will be ignored. And I hope that this 5-day pause or whatever it is really is just a head fake, and that this goes on until at least the goals and objectives that he originally laid out as the purpose for this conflict with Iran are actually met, and that we don't have some kind of negotiated settlement, and we're happy with some kind of Venezuelan solution. Because it is true that hundreds of political prisoners have been released in Venezuela, hundreds still remain, and if we had still an Iranian government which oppressed its own people, we would not have fixed this situation in the long run. In any event, James Stevens Valiant, you can hit me up over at Facebook if you have any questions. And in the meantime, my friends, stay safe.
Thank you, James, for joining us today. Jonathan, would you, well, first, Jonathan, do you have any thoughts? And if not, we can go, I have another video we can check out.
Let's roll the tape, and my time is unfortunately a little limited as well, but let's take a look at some clips and roll the tape.
So we're gonna go take a look back at Cuba. So of course Cuba is experiencing a bit of a energy crisis, and we've been hearing from some Western people going to Cuba, visiting. So let's take a look at Hassan Piker and what he has to say.
Basically landed in Cuba and spent every moment that I had. I didn't participate in a lot of the stuff and any of the stuff really that the Progressive International was doing, which is why it's also like additionally funny. While they're on the one hand, they're lying about like the events that took place. On the other hand, they keep saying I was, a principal participant of these events that took place. I wasn't. I was actually hanging out. I didn't do anything with Progressive International, even though I love those guys and they did fantastic work out there. Because I locked in with Belly of the Beast, the independent news outlet in Cuba, one that I really, really leaned into. I mean, they're fucking incredible. Basically, I spent every moment just conducting interviews, like talking to regular Cubans, talking to people that are doing incredible work, and investigating like how this complex system of restrictions has actually harmed Cuban production every step of the way. Kneecap participated in one of the many daily festivals that happen during the day. Okay? That festival that they participated in had Cuban musicians that were also participating in it. It was free for all Cubans to attend, and it was overwhelmingly Cubans that were there. It blows my fuck.
Okay, so what's happening is, Jonathan, I don't know how much you watched it, but basically a lot of Americans that went to Cuba got a lot of criticism because, for example, they were staying in 5-star hotels that had generators while the country was in an energy crisis. And now, Hassan Piker is trying to sort of justify himself. I talked to regular Cubans, and the festival we did was for the benefit of Cubans. They were free to attend, and all that. And this just, I mean, it reminds me, like, these people, the Americans, like Hassan Piker, Code Pink, and all that, like, they're doing they are going there to do a propaganda for a communist regime. Like, that's what they are doing. They are doing a propaganda for an outright communist regime. Again, we can talk about the energy crisis there, but fundamentally it is because of communism. It is because of their economy. So, I'm not gonna go there and like try to defend that kind of regime.
Yeah, I mean, I admit I don't know. I know this is a popular podcaster or streamer or whatnot. I didn't know him but from this show. But are you willing to tell me that someone who says he stands up for people and stands up for the poor is in favor of the Cuban communist regime, the one that's kept that country poor for decades and decades, while every other country around it has become comparatively wealthy, and America has become extraordinarily wealthy. So, I mean, Daniel, the fact that he goes down there, as you said, to run cover for the communist Cubans, it just boggles the mind. I don't get it, other than it's just a means of outrage and clicks.
Yeah, let's take a look a little bit more, see if he says anything.
Fucking mind that these people can be so cynical and so gross that they think that like regular everyday Cubans don't want to experience fucking joy. It blows my mind. You just don't even want to think. Like, you literally can see it. You can see it in real time. You can see Cubans dancing, singing, having a good time. And you're like, oh, they must be brainwashed. Someone was claiming that they were being bribed with treats. And then I come back and I see people on the sidelines trying to do their very best to continue justifying the asphyxiation that we have implemented on this island. The people died because you morons threw a giant party and sucked up all the electricity. These are fucking Cubans, man. These are everyday Cubans having a great time on a free concert that was thrown together. And it wasn't just kneecap. It was like, you know, Cuban artists that were also participating in it. I say you're a fucking insanely indecent person, and you should really think hard about why you're repeating obvious moronic lies that MAGA is spamming on the timeline. Vicious scumbag.
He's like reading his own tweets. I mean, Jonathan, you said you don't know much Hassan, but oftentimes what he does, when he gets criticized, he tries to take the worst interpretation of the criticism that is, basically make up a straw man, and then he brings that down. Which again, the criticism that a lot of these people are getting is, while there is a energy crisis, they go in there and the way they help is they do some concert. Again, I don't like to necessarily call it hypocrisy, because or sort of like, they are only doing this little bit. They shouldn't be doing anything. I mean, even if this was helping, which, it's hard to say, but even if this is helping, you are running, you are whitewashing a communist regime. That is the end all be all. Like, there is no different. It's still a communist regime, just like it was under Fidel Castro. There is nothing fundamentally different with the current regime. And I don't care if you are helping, or I don't care in what kind of way you think are helping. You are still, basically defending a communist state and attacking in America in the face of it, right? Like, what does he say? Something we implemented. The reason why Cuba is failing is because of us. It's always the Western states that are at fault for why communist dictatorships fail. Jonathan, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, and he seems, shocked that, even in a totalitarian dictatorship, families try to exist. They celebrate. They probably celebrate birthdays too. But my guess is that they don't go to Amazon and order $50 or $100 worth of great gifts. They don't have the kind of wealth that they have in a free country to be able to really celebrate. So, there's Piker's kind of admonishment that, well, the government put on a concert for them. There's like that old line about bread and circuses, and okay, so the people came out and enjoyed the concert. So that just excuses the very notion of a communist dictatorship or a totalitarian dictatorship writ large. Hey, I saw happy people clapping to some music. QED.
Let's take a look a bit more.
Star hotel powered by generators while the local hospital goes dark. You are truly, genuinely a psychopath. Wow. This guy is one of the biggest, most troubled, most schizophrenic, vulgar demons I have ever encountered in my fucking life. And he has the audacity to claim that he's a humanitarian and a liberal. Shame on this fucking piece of shit. Shame on you. Unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. I wasn't even in Cuba when I tweeted this, for the record. Cubans are regular people. Cubans are regular ass people. They enjoy music. They want to fucking go to a concert. They want to live their lives in spite of the fucking ridiculous blockade, right? In spite of the crippling blockade. This is the Kneecap Boys participating in a public free concert that was put together for Cuban artists, okay? And they were like, oh, we're here. Let's do it. We'll also participate in this concert. So they also gave a free performance for every Cuban that was in attendance. And these...
It's kind of interesting. I don't know if this is like the culmination of altruism, but what he wants the moral credit, right? He wants look how good I am. I went and did a charity event for poor Cubans, for those... I almost feel like he has some contempt for those people, because the way he talks about it, like, they are just people like us. There is all, like, the people who say that, there's something weird about them, the way they talk about certain kind of people. But like, he so much wants like moral credit. and he's going crazy because he's not getting it. Because he's like, look how good of a person I am. Why can't you say how good of a person I am? And he does that like again. Hassan Packer does that all the time. Like one time I've seen him. He went to like a pro-Palestinian protest in like a press vest with a. I'm not even sure if even in a helmet or with in like a bulletproof vest basically or something like that. He is like so eager to basically get the moral credit for doing something for the poor people, doing something for the people who have lost or something like that. Jonathan, any
Yeah, I mean, his vulgarity it's such a tell of, either weak argument or no argument, and such a he sounds like a threatened, scared cat, who's caught in the corner and is just throwing out every vulgarity that he can. So, Miss Rand or Dr. Peikoff was once asked about vulgarity, and one of the places I always thought I liked, he said it was appropriate, was the bedroom. And he's absolutely right. It is appropriate in the bedroom. And, to me, it's not just not appropriate, but also starts to lose its sting when every other word out of your mouth is the F-bomb, Hassan. It's kind of like make a coherent point, and you're not strengthening it just by, expletive after expletive.
Yeah, and again, like here with the earlier one, it was like a genuine criticism of him, and he just dismisses it. Now I don't know who the guy he was criticizing, what kind of person they are, but again, he never actually covers the criticism. He always just either takes the worst interpretation or just doesn't engage with it and calls the other person, sometimes a slur. Like I should mention, John, maybe you don't know that, but he genuinely calls people slurs. Now he only calls the people slurs that apparently it is okay to call people slurs. He only calls white people slurs, or other Cubans he don't like, he'll call them slurs. But yeah, apparently that's what is okay in the progressive minds.
People. And this concert is just mostly Cubans, right? Like it's just a lot of people were like, oh, they did a concert for just like the wealthy fucking tourists or whatever. No, it's just mostly Cubans. You fucking idiot. Did you hang at the Malacona at night? People are dancing, making music all night long. It's beautiful. Yeah. I didn't. I went to just a couple different like bars. The first night I went to a bar with the Kneecap Boys. It was awesome. I had a great time there. We just dumped a lot of cash to the best of our ability. On every day.
Look how he is. We came in and we dropped cash. We are benefiting the Cubans because we are going to spend money in bars. Like how much he tries to like get moral credit from visiting like he's a tourist. That's what he did in Cuba. He went to tourist in Havana or whatever they went to for a couple days, and he wants so much moral credit based on that.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, to first of all, as I understand it, in any of the places that tourists go, government, it's basically going into the regime's pocket anyway. So, I mean, maybe he was slipping individual Cubans money here and there. I guess that's great, but without speaking out against the regime, without speaking out,
pro-regime.
He's pro-regime, right? So it's like he's just kind of endorsing the whole ideas that keeps the nation. I've always said there's nothing. It's not like the water in Havana is different than Miami, but you go to Miami and you can't get a 1-bedroom for less than $1 million. So much wealth has been created there. It's 90 miles away roughly, but it's the ideas, and that's a world away. The ideas that dominate Cuba, which Piker seems to be just fine with. Hey, he was able to drop an extra couple $100 or $1,000. Good for him. But, for the Cuban people who for decades now have lived under communism, true communism, their lives have been difficult as a result.
So we have a upgrade of a membership from Ex Nihilo. He upgraded his membership to Inner Circle. So thank you so much for becoming an Inner Circle member. One of the, I think, sort of the biggest benefit right now is the access to the Irreplaceable Spark conference. One, all the videos, all the whole playlist, all the basically talks that have happened, including one from here, Jonathan, where he talked about his years or decades, I should even say, on television. So I recommend checking that out. Thank you again for becoming an Inner Circle member. So we have a
Yes, and thank you to the super chatters as well. You know, we were here 7 days a week before the war, and since the war, we've been here almost the entire day throughout the week. And we do it because we believe in these ideas. We want to introduce people to Ayn Rand, but we need some help for that moral advocacy. So super chat, whether it's £2 or £5 or £50, really goes a lot to help keeping on the air. So so you should be a trader, trade with us, and thanks to all who do.
So okay, let's just finish this clip and then we'll go to the news.
Cubans, but it was, it was much better, in my opinion, to just like go to like regular bars and regular restaurants that were, operating, in spite of the circumstances, because it was, there were just like regular Cubans there.
Yeah, I mean, again, like he is probably in like the touristy part of wherever he was staying. So I would assume those places that are open are probably, like Jonathan, you said, on behalf of the government to basically extract some money from tourists, and probably are pocketed to a large extent by the government, which again, he's supportive of. So he tries to act as if, I'm just doing it on behalf of the Cuban people. But also he's openly saying he's
right. The same Cuban people who are oppressed by the government, right? That's who you're doing it for.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's Hassan Piker. By the way, is son of a Fortune 500 company. Grew up in Turkey, and then got a job by his uncle. But yeah, socialist. President Trump, at swearing-in ceremony at the White House, said that Iran agreed to not have nuclear weapons. Trump was asked what caused him to change his approach, and he replied, "They are talking sense. I said yesterday, what did they say? What's the top 10? I said, well, I love that they quote the whole thing. I said, well, 1, 2, and 3 is this, and they must not have nuclear weapons. And they are not going to have nuclear weapons, and we are talking about it. And I don't want to say in advance, but they agreed that they will never have nuclear weapons. They agreed to that." So it looks like the talks are going through, but again, what type of war does it mean for Iran to say? I mean, they already agreed to not have nuclear weapons, and I don't mean to USA. They agreed it under the Non-Proliferation of Arms Treaty. They agreed under international law that they will never develop nuclear weapons. Yet they have been enriching uranium towards development of nuclear weapons. So, come on, what is this? Like, this is a joke. Jonathan?
Yeah, with that question, I mean, I can think of just 2 presidents already who've negotiated non-proliferation with the Iranians, and MAGA used to make fun of that. I mean, MAGA at one point kind of dismissed that, but now they're and you don't think there's going to be some hidden in those mountains, some hidden little program going on, and of course we don't know about, and of course, if you keep the mullahs in place, even the son of the son of the son of the mullah, you legitimize just the notion of Islamic regimes and of totalitarian rule, Islamic totalitarian Sharia law. So, President Trump was scared by a spike in gas prices. He had no, as I understand it, no plans in place for the potential blockage of the Straits of Hormuz, which is amazing because John Bolton told CNN that he had briefed the president on that as a potential risk of conflict with Iran. And in doing so, and the president's fear of higher oil prices, is willing to, as they say, cut a deal, which I think is, I mean, we'll see how this plays out. I'm also seeing a headline here that the president is ordering more troops to the Middle East. So, we'll see how this plays out, but any compromise with evil, to paraphrase Miss Rand, it's only evil that benefits. And with that, I need to excuse myself. Thank you to our supporters. We need you, £5, £100 at a time, and you can hit me up at capitalistpig.com.
Thank you, Jonathan. Razi.
Can you hear me now?
We cannot. Yeah, we
You
can
can't?
hear you. We can hear you. Come on.
All right. So, do you want to give me a quick recap of what you went over? Content that we were going to talk about, wise rather
We
than
went over
news-wise.
Tucker and Hassan. That's pretty much it.
All right. What else did we have that I sent you?
From Golden Green. There's screen.
Oh yeah, I do want to see that. But before we get to that, so you went over Tucker talking about Sharia law, right? You didn't talk. You didn't go through Tucker's latest interview with Avon.
Who?
Good. I want to keep that for tomorrow, and I want to put it on the thumbnail, and I want to be, very. Well, you'll see. Stick around for tomorrow and see what I have to say about that piece of shit. But yeah. So we talked about the terrorist attack at Golders Green, but just let's see this interview with somebody from the Jewish community there. He was interviewed on what channel is this? Anyway, it's by Ed Balls, who used to be a politician from the Labor Party, front bench politician. And this is the question that Ed Balls had the audacity to ask of a member of the Jewish community hours after a terrorist attack, an Islamic terrorist attack against the Jewish community.
And Dov, when you see last week the Shadow Justice Secretary Nick Timothy singling out the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for praying in Trafalgar Square in a Muslim group and saying that is wrong and shouldn't happen, isn't that the kind of intolerance and divisiveness which is causing problems in the Jewish community right now? Do you condemn that as well?
All right. So that's all we need to hear from Ed Balls. That's from ITV, I believe. Yeah, there was just a terrorist attack against the Jewish community. Ed Balls is interviewing a member of the Jewish community who presumably lives in Golders Green and was, is somebody that Ed Balls and his producers deemed worthy of being interviewed. And the first question that Ed Balls asks him is, do you think criticism of the mayor of London for basically showcasing the ideology behind this attack is the reason for attacks like this? He is blaming, and by the way, he's blaming the shadow whatever secretary. Somebody said something mean about Muslims. Isn't that the reason why Muslims are now attacking Jews? That's the essence of the question by Ed Balls.
Okay. Don't have much to say.
Okay, let me go to a few comments in the chat. And I know what I didn't send you. I think Megyn Kelly spoke to Piers Morgan. I want to see some of that. And I want to address what Roman Viking says, which is, guys, you should maybe surround yourself with more positive clips. The way you do this right now will depress you over time, I fear. Yes, that is true. It's less depressing in the context of a war that is being fought right. I mean, it was much more depressing before, and it is concerning when we look into the future. But we need to look into the future, and we need to try to prevent what I think looks like nearly inevitable, which is a very very steep decline, and the Western civilization being a thing of the past. And pointing out the reasons why we are heading in this way is a big part of I think that fight. So I don't see a scenario where it's going to be mostly positive stuff, but yes, we should have some more positive stuff. And you're right. And yeah, I don't have anything positive at the moment because we're going to see Megyn Kelly and Piers Morgan, but yeah, we will do that. And also, there's the positive of
I'd say reach for positive things outside of it. I mean, generally, watching politics, watching geopolitics, following the war, I think is an important part of staying informed. Our advocacy is something that I value and I think is good. But generally, I think reaching for values or reaching for sort of like good, positive things might be outside of it. For example, Dota 2 is finally getting a new patch, and I think it might be tonight. So I'll be playing a lot later on.
Okay, I have no idea what the last thing you said was, but I agree with all the rest. Although, look, even when we talk about the absolute worst of the worst of humanity, we try to do it kind of with some humor and some positivity, and we will continue to do that, and we will continue to focus on the good stuff that's being done in this war. I mean, look, we've had 2.5 years of negative content because the world is going to hell in a handbasket. But even in those 2 years, we've tried to keep it 2.5 years. We've tried to keep it positive, and we've had some super positive shows, like whenever Israel finally does what needs to be done, and in this case, Israel and the U.S. are doing what needs to be done. It is overall positive, and sometimes it's fun to watch Cenk Uyghur's head explode, even if it comes along with some verbiage from him that it's maybe better not to hear. Bonnie says it was a great 2 hours and 45 minutes. Razi, Daniel, James, and Jonathan were awesome. I'm sure they were. I'm sorry I missed it, and I will try to live up to or match them in the hour and a half or so that I have here until we will probably wrap it up. But yeah, thanks to Daniel and Jonathan and James. And yeah, I'm not going to do the thing that I've been doing for a few days, which is promising that in a day or two the streams will be longer, because I don't know what I have and how long it's going to last, and if it's going to get better or worse. But yeah, there is still a lot to say that I would like to say, and I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about Megyn Kelly and Piers Morgan talking to each other. So let's hear some of that.
You haven't sent me anything, just by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was assuming you have access to all the things that are on the internet, but hang on.
Somebody says, I'm addicted to League of Legends. Well, we forgive you. Wait, why are people posting mic drops? Was it my mic drop or yours?
Where is the Daniel emoji? That is a good question, actually.
Who asked that?
I'm asking that.
Oh.
Because now we have a Razi emoji. You're on this channel more than I am. It doesn't make sense that you're the only one who doesn't have an emoji.
You still haven't sent it.
Yes. I'm going to send you something else, and maybe we will get some Megyn Kelly stuff. Okay. So I don't think we've seen this particular clip, right? But this is we have seen stuff from here, which is this is yesterday when we talked about it a little bit, but it's good to talk about it some more. The way Al Jazeera was kicked out of Golders Green is is something I would really like to see more of. I think this is the right approach. Okay, yeah. Let me just do the update. Alex updates us that Nebrak has suffered a hit. I don't know if it's a direct hit from a missile or if it's part of a cluster bomb, but 3 people injured is what they say. So glad it wasn't worse than that. There was, I assume you talked about it, but there was 1 woman killed today in the north of Israel. And yeah, the north is still under constant fire from Lebanon. Yeah. All right.
He won't be able to go live. He won't be able to go live. I'm stopping the live. Whoever he's speaking to. We don't want you here. We don't want you in the Jewish community. Tell your bosses in Al Jazeera. Tell your bosses in Al Jazeera we don't want you. We don't want you here. Tell your bosses in Al Jazeera we don't want you. Baruch! Tell your bosses in Al Jazeera, the one that's paying you, there's no live. Finished. Finito. You can pack up and go. Khalas, finally. Go.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. How does it feel? Get lost. Get lost. Go home. We don't want to see you here. We don't want to see you people. Why do you guys support Hamas?
I don't support
You wrap up your interview and get lost.
You saved me the day.
What?
You saved me the day. I can go
Good,
home and
good.
enjoy the
I'm happy. I
rest
don't
of
want
the
to see your face here. Your face and your face. Get lost. Both your faces. Get lost from here. We don't need you here.
day. I can enjoy the rest of the day.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Do whatever you want. No one needs you. No one needs you here. No one needs Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera can go and get lost. Tell your bosses, no interview here. Because over here we don't need you. We don't need terrorist supporters over here. Get lost. Fucking wankers. Baruch, I closed them down. Al Jazeera. Pack up and go. Go.
I can watch that on a loop. Very well done. We talked yesterday about. I spoke to Manik Govinda about that protest against the Guardian after the Guardian columnist Jonathan Liu wrote about the opening of a Gale's Bakery, a bakery that has some Israeli, heritage. A branch opening 2 stores down from a Palestinian cafe and getting targeted for existing, and he called the very opening of it an act of high street aggression. This is an act of high street aggression. Al Jazeera, a terrorist propaganda network of an Islamic theocracy, showing up hours after an Islamic terrorist attack on the Jewish community, showing up, basically getting in the face of the Jewish community, and doing so knowing that the terrorists will most likely get away with this, and have gotten away with this. Like terrorist attacks against Jews and Israel related stuff has not been prosecuted, or they've been let off the hook, as we saw with the Palestine Action terrorists. So very well done. Bonnie asks, how do you square this with freedom of speech?
I want to talk on that because I was wondering, like, basically I think to a large extent what's happening, strategy of the comments, the fact that sidewalk is a publicly owned thing. Because I'm wondering, let's say somebody's like trying to take a picture or trying to like record something as a news, and I'm just in the background like doing silly faces or whatever. Like I'm wondering, is there any violation of? And I think if it was like somebody's property, then you could like actually make a thing. But I have no idea what you do in like public property, because like in a sense they have the same right, and I don't like the way, but the same ability to use that sidewalk and to record the footage, as well as he has to just. I mean, he probably shouldn't be able to like scream in their faces straight up like that stuff. Since I think that could be akin to disturbance, but sort of simply, let's say, staying a bit away and simply talking in the sense of they cannot record voice. I mean, it's a good question.
Yeah, and as Bonnie says, no force was involved. That's the thing. First of all, how do you square freedom of speech with allowing Al Jazeera to exist in this country? Because it is the existence of Al Jazeera is a violation of freedom of speech. People in Qatar don't have freedom of speech. They have a propaganda network of the government that is exporting their ideas and their values to the West, and the West gladly accepts it. So that's one issue. But yeah, in terms of just getting there, shouting them down, not touching them. Yeah, I'm all for that. I encourage people to do that. If you see Al Jazeera reporters anywhere, get in their face, get in their mics, shout whatever you need to shout, drop however many F-bombs you need to get them to go off the air.
Just
call them out for the
get a
terrorist.
picture of Muhammad.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah. Well, look, bear in mind you're going to be on camera when you're on Al Jazeera. So yeah, there's actually
apparently now it's okay to just wear masks all the time, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I like that idea, but it does actually bring me to another tweet that I saved that I want to send to you on this
have
issue.
a mask of Muhammad, even better.
This facial hair is a mask of Muhammad.
Soon on objectivism.co.uk/shop.
All right. Okay, so this is a tweet. Yeah, by a British Muslim who is against Islamophobia. Sounds like a noble cause, right? This is the video. Can we show the video? I haven't seen the video. I've only read the tweet and saved it. All right, I think we get the gist of it. Yeah, so here's the tweet. It has 13,000 likes. A group of aggressive Jewish men intimidate a Muslim Al Jazeera journalist who was there to report on the Golders Green ambulance incident. I'm not going to pause. Well, I just did, but I'm going to go back to all this, all the different parts of it. They shout, quote, Al Jazeera off our streets, go home, and terrorist. Their behavior is a disgrace. If a group of Muslim men behaved like this towards a Jewish journalist, the reaction on social media would be different. Islamophobia is unacceptable. Okay, so first of all, was there to report on the Golders Green ambulance incident. Islamic terrorist attack. That was the ambulance incident. If a group of Muslim men behave like this towards a Jewish journalist, a group of Muslim men did the terrorist attack, which is why we're even talking about this in the first place. I mean, and again, these people are actually, these absolute scumbags are actually spinning this to make the Muslims seem as the victims of an Islamic terrorist attack against Jews. And look, we heard this on October 7th. Like, they weren't talking about ceasefire now. They were celebrating in the streets. They started saying ceasefire now on October 8th, and then later on they dropped that and said how much they actually love war and genocide, not exactly using those words, but making it very clear. So yeah, people, when you look at the problem here, look at the problem closely of Islam in this country. It's widespread. It's not some small minority of Muslims. This is the vast majority of Muslims in one way or another would agree with stuff like this, would promote the Islamophobia bullshit, and would play the victim after they attack others. So don't let them get away with this, and we certainly won't.
Yeah, I mean, they say, the reactions would be different if this was the opposite. And yeah, probably and rightfully so. If a bunch of... now, it wouldn't have to be Jewish people. If it was non-Jewish people reacting to Al Jazeera negatively, I think it's proper. And if it would be a bunch of Muslims reacting negatively to, I don't know what kind of international, like, Jewish... a news site there is, but let's say there was some in the UK, then yeah, it'll be different. One is because Al Jazeera is actively working on the behalf of the state of Qatar to destroy the state of Israel, while any Jewish media, half the time they are probably also against Israel as well. So yeah, one is a free media, one is a straight propaganda, but that's the difference.
Yeah, there is I-24 News. I don't know if they're carried. I really doubt they're carried by anybody in the UK. I don't have cable or satellite, so I don't know. But I would be surprised if they're carried. And certainly, if Channel 14 started broadcasting in English, they wouldn't be allowed. Then again, in Israel, people also oppose their existence. So yeah, this is a good question. Yeah, if the shoe were on the other foot, the Muslims would be the victims, and when the Muslims are attacking, they are also apparently the victims.
Somebody says the reporter didn't attack anybody. Why should he not be allowed to do his job? I mean, why shouldn't they be allowed to? Say that they do not want him there. I think it's the same thing. You don't owe... and again, I think this is to some extent a problem of the comments. Like, if, let's say, if this... is this a Jewish neighborhood, I assume? Because I haven't followed this closely. Yeah. So if we were living under actual capitalism, this Jewish neighborhood would probably be held, especially, I don't know how orthodox this specific neighborhood is, but would probably be held in common by the, or no, even generally, like pretty much every like street would be some form of probably gated community, right? Like every street would be owned by probably in some hold of common, in some trust by like a homeowner association of the people who actually live there, meaning they would tell him, okay, you cannot, we do not allow, this is our property, we do not allow you to record stuff here, so get out. So probably if we were living under a freer system, that journalist would never even be there, because he wouldn't be allowed to come there, and he shouldn't be allowed to. Like, I think there's a difference between allowing like free media to come in and do I mean, generally when it comes to negative coverage of yours, it's always going to be looked, between the fingers, but especially Al Jazeera, of course. I would not allow Al Jazeera to like go in my city and record whatever they want, even if it was in some weird like positive or just a documentary or whatever. No, get the hell out. I don't want like state propaganda or I think Alex mentioned RT. I don't want like state propaganda to get any footage to make their propaganda.
Yeah. Why shouldn't he be allowed to do his job? Well, he shouldn't allowed to do his job. He shouldn't be allowed to do his job by law. I mean, again, this country shouldn't pretend that Qatar is a legitimate state, let alone allow its enemy propaganda. It is enemy propaganda with the intention of taking down the West. This is what Al Jazeera is. It's you know, it's I don't know if their English operation started after 9/11, but they certainly started becoming prominent in the West after 9/11, and they've been successful. Look how successful they've been. Look at where the West has gone from 9/11 to today in terms of understanding the Islamic threat, and look at the Islamic threat itself and where it has gone. So, yeah, we should understand who the enemy is if we're ever going to fight it. And isn't Qatar allied to the West? No, Qatar is an enemy of the West. The fact that Western countries consider a country an ally because they're thinking short term, and this country is giving you money that they got from you by stealing from you. Remember, Qatar, no Qatari has ever produced anything. This is, they sat on oil, which they didn't discover. They didn't know what to do with. Western companies came in, realized that that it has value, and then they said, "Oh, it's ours. We happen to be here." So no, Qatar is not an ally of the West. Qatar is not an ally of the West any more than Iran is an ally of the West. In fact, even if on paper they are. All right. Before we go to the Megyn Kelly video, let's quickly do our "Don't Be a Rogan" or "Don't Be a Retard" Joe Rogan segment of the day. Yeah, we don't have anybody filming missiles, but we have Joe Rogan, and this is I don't know.
For example, Judaism. You mentioned earlier Judaism.
It's very relevant now because look. We talked about Rogan yesterday, the day before, and he's the world's most popular podcaster. This is the level of knowledge of this person, and it's good to understand who you're dealing with. So let's hear from Joe Rogan.
For example, Judaism. You mentioned earlier Judaism. Do you know how many Jews there are in the world? Not 12. To put you on the spot. 12 what?
No, I don't know. I'm just taking a guess.
You want to take just not to put you on the spot.
Okay, let me think.
How many?
There's 7 billion people in the world.
Yes.
I would guess there would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 billion Jews.
1 billion. Jamie, you want to take
maybe 500 million. Maybe I'm gonna take a very conservative guess. I'm gonna change it to 500 million.
I'm so glad that we did this. You're going to be shocked.
How many?
There's somewhere between 13 to 15 million Jews.
That is more than that in New York.
No.
You're out of your fucking mind.
No, just look it up.
Shut the mic off. This guy's talking crazy. He's an agent.
I'm a Zionist shill.
Really?
Let Jamie now do his little Google magic.
13 to 15 million? That's
13
crazy.
to 15 million.
There's more idiots in America than there are Jews.
And that's only in Arkansas. Oh, I'm just kidding. Sorry, guys. I'm just joking.
Is that really it?
Yeah.
Well, think about how many Nobel Prize winners are Jews.
I think 25 to 30%.
It's incredible.
Right. And that, by the way, some people will say there's a genetic element, but even if...
Here we go. What do we got? 14,200,000.
Did I just
Jewish
say between 13
world.
and 15 million?
That's insane.
Always perfectly accurate.
What is the enlarged? What does that mean? Okay, so the world, the largest number possible is 20 million. You know, that's like... Given,
I've never seen 20 million. It's usually the highest I've seen is 16 million.
It says core Jewish and large Jewish. What is that? Like dudes who get converted because their wife makes them?
I don't know.
My uncle did that.
But by strict conversion law.
Be funny, and we know how that goes. But it's also Joe Rogan trying to sound knowledgeable, and we know how that goes. Yeah, 1 billion. You know what? I'm gonna go to 500 million. By the way, Moody. I get that there's typos, but get my name right. Anyway.
Maybe he's not talking to you, but he's talking to Pahlavi.
That could be the case.
By the way, just a reminder, yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was, I was guessing a population of Russia with complete lack of knowledge, and I guessed exactly correct. So again, if you have a general knowledge, if you have a general understanding, you know things. Like, and again, you know, this is Joe Rogan before his anti-Semitism, so, you know, or I assume before his anti-Semitism, at least not the apparent
Yeah,
one.
it's God Saad before his diet. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's from a while ago.
So yeah, maybe, but it's like it tells you, because again, like there is being like factoid wrong. You know, maybe you don't remember like exact date, but if you don't even know ballpark, that tells something about your core of knowledge. The fact that you have no idea what you're talking about. Like if I ask, let's say I asked Razi where Yom Kippur was, and he says 72. Well, it's okay. He's like a little bit wrong. But if he says like 1872, it's like, okay, you're not just wrong. You just have no understanding of like any history at all. Because you cannot guess that like a war of Israel was before the establishment of Israel. So in the same way, like, let's say he get like, I was thinking like how many Jews there are, and in my head I was thinking like 20 to 25 million. So I was wrong, like, although no, maybe I'm not actually that wrong, because this was like 10 years ago basically. But you know, I was off by a few million. But like 500 million, that's a different scale of that. That's not even being like, you're not even wrong at that point. You just have no idea about this topic at all.
I'm more forgiving the people who don't know things.
No. Again, that it's a difference between not knowing things and being so wrong that you're not even
the distance between what is the correct answer and what is his answer is less of a problem than the fact that he can't just say I don't know, because what we watched a few days ago. Actually, Daniel, if you have that, to put it in context, let's watch the beginning of it, because I remember pausing it 5 seconds in, thinking, "What the hell happened here?" This is how Joe Rogan comments about the video. Let's watch the video first, so people know what he is talking about. But understand, he hasn't watched the video first. And it's a few seconds. First, he comments. Then he watches the video, and then he comments some more.
When did we play it? I started saving everything, but I'm still not indexing stuff, so
maybe
I only
it's Sunday. But let's start with the video itself, and then you can.
I found it. What do you mean, video itself?
The video of the reporter in Lebanon, Steve Sweeney.
Oh, you wanna do that one?
That one, and then Rogan commenting on it.
Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted. Fucking hell. I actually lolled.
Now let's see Joe Rogan finding out during his own show about this after, like, commenting before he actually sees the video, and then just playing it off and continuing his commentary.
Yeah, they attacked that reporter, man.
Crazy.
It looked, I mean, unless it was a wayward missile, which is like what happened to precision strikes.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they were surgical. Remember they would call them surgical?
That's right.
Imagine calling a bomb that's going like 5,000 miles an hour surgical.
I think they got old equipment over there. They got Atari and shit. They're way behind. But we hit a school. That was on us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
100%.
Even in our other countries, we're shooting schools.
Well, the school was, unfortunately, what is it, James?
Right before it. Whoa, is that the... Damn, that's quite a hit.
Whoa, that's nuts.
Jesus Christ, looks like L.A.
It's crazy that you can capture it. Like, how good are these cameras? Meanwhile, they couldn't catch that plane flying into the Pentagon.
That's true.
Right? When you see that thing.
All right. So, yeah, we're not going to go through the whole thing again, but look, in the first few seconds, he sort of confuses his own mind with, like, just stuff that's in there because it's against Jews. it belongs in there and belongs, on his show. But it's a bunch of stuff. Hang on, the precision missiles. How did they miss him? But they targeted him, and that was all in the first few seconds. And then he sees it, and he's impressed by the camera work, and he somehow ties that in to his 9/11 conspiracy theory. Joe Rogan in a nutshell.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go to Megyn Kelly and Piers Morgan? And I will join you from my phone.
Hang on. Yeah.
What?
No, I'm just imitating.
Is that me you're imitating?
No, Piers Morgan. Hang on.
Oh, yeah. All right. I guess so. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to join from my phone without camera, and I'll be back shortly, but feel free to pause it before I ask you to pause it.
But we begin with developments on the war in Iran, which seem to be changing by the minute. Early this morning, President Trump posting a message to Truth Social claiming, quote, productive talks are underway with Iran and saying, therefore, he is postponing his own self-imposed deadline to strike Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure. The president 2 days ago gave the 48-hour deadline, saying if Iran did not open the Strait of Hormuz, he would, quote, obliterate various Iranian power plants, starting with the biggest one first. That deadline would be 7:44 p.m. this evening. In response, Iran then promising to, quote, irreversibly destroy essential infrastructure across the Middle East, even suggesting they may hit desalination plants throughout the region, which would be truly catastrophic for Israel and potentially for the Gulf states. So that's where we stood, because Iran didn't open the Strait of Hormuz as demanded by President Trump. And that's where things stood until this morning, thus staring down that 7:44 p.m. deadline, which was looking rather ugly. It caused stock futures to jump and the cost of oil to fall because President Trump came out suggesting we'd reach some sort of a agreement. And then many asked whether this entire thing is about market manipulation. Okay, so did we actually reach a stand down with Iran? Did we speak with them? How? Through whom? They're denying it. Iran's foreign minister came out and denied any talks were underway at all. And the New York Times reporting that the Israeli military, no sooner than Trump had issued that Truth Social, began conducting a new wave of strikes today. And that's extremely important. So Trump says you got 48 hours to allow traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says, F you. You, if you strike us in the way you're saying, after 48 hours by hitting our energy plants, we are going to hit the desalination plants throughout the Middle East, among other targets. And there it stood in détente until this morning when Trump issued his great news. We've been speaking with the Iranians. We've made major progress, and I'm going to hold off on my threat. Then the Iranians come out and deny that we've been having any such talks and say this is Trump caving because they know he doesn't want, what they threatened. And that this is a sort of taco situation. Trump always chickens out. That's what his critics are saying. It's what the Iranians are saying. But either way, no sooner does Trump say, okay, we're going to stop our threat and we won't be bombing any of your energy plants or et cetera, then the Israelis drop a couple of bombs and proceed full steam ahead. Any talk of this war winding down, which comes as welcome news to most of us, probably sends shivers down the spine of Senator Lindsey Graham, who is still out there as the main spokesperson for the administration for some reason. It's amazing that Trump, who is generally...
All right. Again, this is a thing with the MAGA people, that the sort of anti-Israel and anti-American MAGA people who really are struggling. They hate everything that Trump is doing. They can't criticize Trump, and like they're grasping like, okay, Lindsey Lindsey Graham, is the usual suspect. Israel bombed Iran. Israel bombed Iran after Trump said something. America is also bombing Iran. America didn't stop bombing Iran. So what exactly she's trying to say there, other than to again throw fuel on the anti-Semitic fire? I don't know. I think he spoke to Reza Pahlavi. Is that in what is that based on? Because at least yesterday, the reports we saw is that he spoke to the Speaker of Parliament in Iran, who then denied it. But then apparently there are some talks in Pakistan. So, but yeah, it's not going to be talks with Reza Pahlavi if you're talking to somebody in the regime. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know if we see Piers at any point in this clip, but what we see from Meghan is really, again, really a struggle for her. She has dropped the "I'm a supporter of Israel," but which she did at the beginning of this journey, as far as I can tell. But she's still sort of a Republican, MAGA, and and can't really. It can't say anything. It's again like remember the early days of the MAGA movement. He could do no wrong. He says tariffs are the greatest thing. Tariffs are the greatest thing. He changes his mind. He lowers tariffs. Like anything Trump did, including the opposite of what he did or said the day before, they would cheer him on. Now they're constantly criticizing him, but never naming him. And in a way, that's much worse because it's not even Trump's fault that Trump does what he does. What does that say about your favorite person as a person if he's controlled by Netanyahu and Lindsey Graham? Which is a question I don't expect anybody to ask Meghan.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to Meghan.
Then let's hear more from Meghan.
A communications genius, has seen fit to let this guy be the face of this war. Just yesterday on Fox News, he was calling for U.S. Marines to take Iran's Karg Island, which would be extremely complicated and controversial, comparing the operation to Iwo Jima during World War II.
Here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Karg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine.
Is this going to, though, take Karg Island? Is it going to involve U.S. troops on the ground? Let me just read you something from The Atlantic. Does an assessment on that. They say U.S. troops may well take Karg Island. We believe in their ability to do so, but only to endure ballistic missile strikes, drone attacks, petrochemical smoke, all without a reliable means of obtaining logistical support. The result could be a grinding war of attrition. They talk about how far away they would be from resupply.
I'm sort of tired of all this armchair quarterbacking. This has been an amazing military operation. God bless the fallen.
But it's a difference when we talk about troops on the ground.
I trust the Marines, not that guy. I trust DOD. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this. The Marines, my money is always on the Marines.
Wait. Before she starts speaking about that, again, a reminder, Lindsey Graham is calling for Trump to do what Trump has been talking about doing repeatedly. Where is the criticism from Meghan? If this is a bad idea, according to Meghan, why is it not being criticized when Trump says it? Why is it being all of a sudden like, where was she? For days, more than days, he's been talking about this as a possibility. Lindsey Graham now agrees with Trump. How is Lindsey Graham? I don't understand. Again, my lack of understanding is of her audience, her fellow travelers. How they get away with it in their own mind.
Yeah, I mean, not much to say here. It's only Lindsey Graham speaking. Which again, if the strategically taking Karg Island makes sense, do it. But I understand the sort of strategic limitations. But again, the goal is clear, and the strategic way of achieving it is something that should be left to the Defense Department or the Secretary of War and the generals. But the goal should be clear: unconditional surrender or complete achievement of our goals, which includes, I think, limiting or taking out the regime's ability to threaten us, hopefully forever, but I think more realistically in the near and mid-term future. If it includes Cargo Island, that's what's gotta happen.
All right, let's hear. Maybe Megyn does name President Trump after all in her rant about how horrible Lindsey Graham is for agreeing with Trump about taking Cargo Island.
6,821 U.S. service personnel died in the battle for Iwo Jima. 19,217 were wounded. How dare he speak about it so cavalierly? How dare he? He doesn't have any kids. He's not sending a young son or daughter into battle. F this guy. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna posting on X that Senator Graham is acting as if our troops are, quote, expendable cattle. That's exactly right. How dare he? And now we learn over the weekend that Rupert Murdoch was one of the main people to be goading Trump into this war. Rupert Murdoch, who is 95 years old. He'll be dead soon. And he, too, is acting as if our troops are, quote, expendable cattle. He won't have to live with the consequences of what he's doing. And good for Anna Paulina Luna. Also, Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace called him out as well. There are now Republicans pushing back on this bloodthirsty lunatic for how jubilantly he wants to send our troops in to fight his favorite and Israel's battle. Joining me now on all of it, Piers Morgan. He's host of Piers Morgan Uncensored on YouTube.
I am interested. I am interested if the Rupert Murdoch thing comes up some more. Of course, none of us would know who Megyn Kelly is if it wasn't for Rupert Murdoch giving her her first gig or first basically gig that made her famous, which is also true of Piers Morgan, who was editor of News of the World, which was a News Corp-owned newspaper. Let's hear their conversation.
Piers, welcome back. Let's just start as journalists with the folly of making this lunatic the face of the war by a man, Trump, who normally is more media savvy than us all. What is happening there?
Well, Megyn, great to be back on your show. I do not understand any of this. Donald Trump is somebody who the entire world knows campaigned very vociferously and very repeatedly on a ticket of no more engagement in foreign wars, which he felt was way too expensive, both economically and on human life. And he wanted to focus on boosting the American economy. And then a few months before the midterm elections, which are going to be difficult enough as it is for any incumbent president, he launches the biggest attack in the Middle East that we've seen since the Iraq War, possibly even bigger, given the enormity of what is now coming back in by way of Iran's response. It's having an obvious, massive impact on not just the US economy, but the global economy. And none of the predictions that we were given in the first few days has come true. In fact, quite the opposite. It looks that like the Americans and the Israeli combined military has been very successful militarily in destroying a lot of Iranian military hardware. But in terms of tactics in this war, the Iranians have basically held everybody to hostage because they control the Strait of Hormuz and because they know that by attacking their neighboring Gulf states in places that will really hurt them, to do with their energy plants, to do with tourism areas and so on, that they can have a stranglehold over any military. And that's exactly what's happened. And the constant mixed messaging from Donald Trump and the administration and the very incendiary gung-ho rhetoric from people like Lindsey Graham, the combined effect of all this, when we can all see with our own eyes how this war is playing out. And it's quite clear the Iranians have not got the abject surrender memo. And I'm not even sure that they have got the memo we're being told about this morning, which is that they're all ready to do a deal. They're showing no sign of any of this. And so I stand here, sit here, scratching my head in incredulity about what of any of this makes any sense at all if you're the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Trump's messaging has been everywhere. You know, that we've obliterated them. We've basically won. Oh, we're about to obliterate you, and we will win. It's over. You know, we've defeated them. We've achieved all our objectives, and then we may be sending in ground troops to take Karg Island. They have no defenses left. We've destroyed everything, and then you open up the Strait of Hormuz, or we're bombing all of your energy plants. Like you waited 24 hours and you will get a brand new message from our president. Meanwhile, Iran is sitting over there saying, we are not negotiating. We don't know who he thinks he's negotiating with, but we didn't agree to anything. This is a stand down by the president who realized that we meant it, that if he actually did start bombing our energy plants, we were going to start attacking the desalination plants throughout the region, which, you know, we reported in our morning news update this morning, Piers, is like you've got several of these Gulf countries, these Gulf Arab countries that have over 90% of their drinking water depends on desalination. I mean, that it would be truly catastrophic if the Iranians actually did that, not to mention what knocking out the Iranian energy plants would do to world energy prices and oil prices. And Iran hasn't budged on the Strait of Hormuz problem.
Right. And you've got no sign of any actual regime change. We know the Ayatollah was killed. We haven't seen his son, so he's presumed either dead or very seriously injured in a way that's incapacitated him. But regardless of that, the IRGC are still clearly firmly in charge of the country. And we know that because there's been no sign of any uprising by the people, many of whom are very opposed to the regime. But there are two reasons why we're not seeing the uprising, or three, I would argue. One is there are bombs obviously flying everywhere, which makes it very unsafe to hit the streets. Secondly, they remember what happened in January when the regime cracked down in the most vicious and vengeful manner against protesters, killing up to 30,000 of them. And three, it's obvious to everybody that the IRGC are completely in control. And there are 250,000 of them. There are 400,000 to 500,000 paramilitaries below them, heavily armed. And then there's nearly 1 million regular Iranian army. This is, you know, you're not dealing with some tin pot regime here that's just going to roll over, or a regime like Venezuela where they were quite happy to do a deal. Here you're dealing with an ideological country fueled by religion, which is pathologically opposed to any American rule over them in any capacity, and hates Israel too.
So, you know, this is what the anti-American media has done throughout this war. Point to all the stuff that can go wrong, all the strengths of the Iranian regime, and the strengths in terms of fighting against the West, causing damage to the West, and fighting against their own people. There's no mention of the fact that the U.S. has not really done anywhere near all that it can do. That there's so much more it can do. That not a single ground troop has started fighting there, and that they're sending some now, and that, you know, there's potentially more to come. Not to mention that from the air a lot more can be done. The U.S. is holding back. Megyn Kelly calls people within the context of war, people who say we should do more, like take Karg Island, calling them warmongers or something to that effect. So on the one hand, you're saying anybody who says we should step it up while we're at war, like we should step up the war efforts. We're already at war, okay? So your fantasy about the Ayatollahs getting away with it, getting a nuclear bomb, dropping it on Israel, and finishing the job is not happening right now. We're at war. So you're advocating on the one hand for not doing more to win it, and then telling us all the bad things that the other side can do. Yes, The bad things that the other side can do are nothing compared to what the U.S. can do. And it would be nice to see the U.S. start.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the classic example of, I mean, this is just such a... Like, I'm surprised these people ever succeeded in any way in their life, if this is their attitude towards, like, problems. And I know it's hard to... Because, again, they just... But this is the fundamental thing. They don't see the Iranian regime as a threat. I think that's fundamental. Because, like, if you saw it as a problem, you wouldn't try to make these excuses. Which, again, like, in some instances might be valid. Yeah, people will die. People on our side will die. We are taking a risk, which is what you always do when you try to achieve something great or to eliminate a great threat. You know, I wouldn't necessarily call removing of Iran as some sort of like a good achievement. It's more of a removal of threat. It's like a getting off trucks. You know, it's hard. It's not going to be easy. You have to do it. And I can just see Piers Morgan saying, well, when I try to get off heroin, you know, I keep wanting to do it. I'm not gonna do UK accent, but like I keep wanna like keep doing it. I get shivers. I get annoyed. I get I just get restless. I cannot think about anything, and it's like yes, it's hard, because you failed for a long time to do something about it. For a long time, you failed at taking out heroin, taking out Iran. So now it's gonna be hard, but you gotta do it, and you can. And Piers Morgan is basically acting as if, you know what, taking heroin is not as bad. You know, it's not as bad as actually getting off it. So we shouldn't do anything about it. Because again, if your thing is like we weren't prepared for it, okay, let's take a few years, prepare for it, and then do it. What do you think, Piers? Can we take a few years and then do it?
Secret Bastring says, Bill Clinton forced Israel to leave Gaza. Sorry, Razi, I know how much you love him. Well, you should be sorry because you got like so
Tony
much
Blair,
wrong in
not
two
Bill Clinton.
sentences. What?
It's Tony Blair that he lost.
Yeah. First of all, the absolutely incorrect accusation is that I'm a big fan of Tony Blair, not Bill Clinton. Also, it wasn't Bill Clinton who forced Israel to leave Gaza. It was under George W. Bush, but I don't think Bush forced him. This was Ariel Sharon being Ariel Sharon and deciding to basically go exactly against what got him elected, because the main issue in the election, the last election before the disengagement, was the removal of settlements, and Ariel Sharon was against it and warned that if the left won, they would do it. And then he won and threatened to do it, but said, you know what, we're going to have a referendum. And then he thought, wait, I can't win that referendum. So instead of having a referendum of the whole country, I'm going to have a referendum of Likud party members. And I remember him saying, the result of this will be final. This is what we're going to do. I remember because I was a member of the Likud party, and I don't think there's any vote in my life that I was more proud to go and vote against this horrible idea. And of course, no won by, I believe it was 60 to 40%. And then he did it anyway. So yeah, this is on Ariel Sharon and not on Bill Clinton. A lot is on Bill Clinton. A lot was on Bill Clinton. Okay, let's stop talking about Bill Clinton. By the way, tomorrow we're going to talk about Tucker Carlson's guest, Avraham Burg, who was on there today. And I'm going to contact them behind the scenes as well. But Alex, if you're watching and you want to join me for that, my plan is to go through the whole thing. I haven't watched a minute of it yet, but if that piece of shit decided that this is how he's getting back into things, yeah, we will call him out on what he has done. Daniel, I'll tell you exactly what I want on the thumbnail. I can see it already, but I can't make it, so I'll tell you afterwards, and I'm sure people might be able to guess more or less. Shadow says, don't ignore the political constraints, Razi. Only 36% approval for this war in the U.S. I don't know what the percentage is, but that's not how you run a country. Like, there's election, and if you win it, you then should do what's right, and that's it. So, yeah, I know this is not what Trump is doing, and I don't think he understands that what he's doing fully is the right thing to do. I know he doesn't. Otherwise, he would actually just do it properly and fully without maybes and if they do this and let's negotiate and all that crap. But yeah, again, like what I'm counting on is Iran not agreeing to any of this, and Trump having no choice but to win.
Somebody says, how can you be a member and vote if you are a British citizen? Well, that's the dual or triple loyalties of the Jewish people that we've often seen, right?
Who said that? And I'm not a British citizen. And you can have dual citizenship. But I'm not a dual. Well, I'm a dual citizen, but not of Britain. Neither of those is Britain. Anyway.
What are you doing? How can you be there then?
What?
How can you be in Britain then?
Because of apparently immigration policy is not as bad as some people in this country would like it to be. Secret Bassring says it started with Clinton. Bush was just an idiot. A lot started with Clinton, and it was him there. He will forever be in that picture of Arafat and Rabin shaking hands. I don't agree that Bush was an idiot. He had like he had difficulty sometimes saying things correctly, but that was super entertaining every time he did, and the way he would come back from some weird statement, I was always just amazing.
These brown people coming into Britain, setting up companies.
All right. Yeah. Stealing all the jobs from the public sector union workers who would run the Ayn Rand Center UK in my stead.
Damn right.
Undoubtedly. But yeah, there are still parties who want to kick me out, and hopefully they won't win. Anyway, Megan and Pierce.
Who are just not going to be bullied into towing the line in the way that Donald Trump seems to think they are. And they have the weaponry to resist being bullied. But that weaponry, it's not just military. They've got a lot of military, particularly ballistic missiles, which they've now been firing way far further than people thought. And that even imperils places like where I am right now in London in terms of its potential reach. But they're doing it very tactically, smartly. You have to be honest about it. Economically, by controlling the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil comes through every day, with the way they've gone after the neighboring Gulf states, they're sending a message that we may not have the firepower you do, but we can strangle you with the economy. And that is proving to the Gulf states and to Europe and to, I would imagine, many Americans, deeply unpalatable and ultimately unsustainable.
The report just hitting now via the Jerusalem Post is that Iranian parliamentary speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf is leading the talks with the United States. So it's possible we have found a person to talk to. Trump had said earlier that we wouldn't know who we were talking with because who to talk to because we'd killed them all. But now there is the parliament speaker. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who apparently is speaking with the United States, and let's hope that's true. The latest reports on what the demands were by each side sounded absolutely impossible for reaching an agreement, Pierce, though they often do in the beginning. The Iranians were demanding a ceasefire, okay. Guarantees that the war will not resume in the future, okay, maybe. And compensation, they use the word reparations for what we've done over there so far. The U.S. is demanding no missile program for 5 years, 0 uranium enrichment. That's what we wanted beforehand that they wouldn't agree to. Decommissioning the Natanz, Ifshan, and Fordow nuclear facilities. Strict outside observation protocols around the creation and use of centrifuges and related machinery that could advance a nuclear weapons program. Arms control treaties that include a missile cap, no higher than 1,000, no financing for proxies, and those are the basics of the deal. International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital.
Give Megyn Kelly money. So First of all, the fact that she doesn't respond to Pierce's whole speech there on how strong Iran is and how we can never actually beat them, with, this right wing Republican not saying, what are you talking about? This is the United States of America. This is the strongest military in the world. We can nuke them back to the Stone Age if we wanted to, and if we have to, we will. Instead, she just lets him go on and then, expresses essentially agreement with him. Susie says, Pierce commands more authority with Americans like Meghan, thanks to the British accent, much like John Oliver. Yeah, Americans, if you want to explain that in the chat, I don't understand it. But it is a thing. With Meghan, I don't think it would matter what accent it's said in. If it's anti-American, she will be on board.
Somebody says companies, I bet it's a charity, which is a great segue towards the objectivism.co.uk.
Yeah, first of all, he said, I bet. Did you actually bet? I mean, bet, person. And if you lose, we're expecting a very generous super chat and you to buy everything Daniel is now selling. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have the ARCUK for-profit t-shirts, since ARCUK is a for-profit company, limited. ARCUK Limited. So for-profit shirts, of course, Nikos Guevara shirts, both for $35, free shipping. And we now also have Nikos Guevara hoodies. So for the a bit colder or a bit changing weather in London or in the UK, we have also Nikos Guevara hoodies. That's $65, again, free shipping. All over the world.
Who will you bet? You said you bet. So you lost the bet. Where's our money? All right. Should we hear? Oh, that was over. That was the rest. That was all Megan had to say. All right. Then let's check the news.
Oh.
This is a Fox News Super Alert.
Why is it so quiet?
Because it always resets to 50, so then I have to manually raise the sound, and sometimes I forget. So
this is a Fox News Super Alert.
Okay, 9 people were injured in Bnei Brak from the Iranian missile that was not shot down. Look, it's Israel doesn't have 100%, defense system that guarantees nothing is going to fall, which is all the more reason people go to shelter when there is, when there is a siren. Okay, there's some stuff here that maybe we'll show as videos tomorrow. Some impressive military operations.
And again, just because the people who don't go to shelters and record the interceptions or whatever, just because you get to see yourself on this channel doesn't mean you should do it. We will be very happy to not play any of those.
Yeah, can't you just put your phone on a selfie stick and control it from another phone, or control the selfie stick or something? I don't know. It's risk your phone if you have to. Don't risk your life. People want to get the footage. That's why they're there. Okay, there's things they can risk. Risk your phone, risk your camera. Risking your life is not worth it, people. But you know your life. Maybe it is worth it. Anyway, maybe some people's dying wish is to be on the Don't Be a Retard segment, and who are we to deny them that if that's what they want in life? All right. Sorry, people. Razi is not 100%, and Daniel has been here for 4 hours straight. So unless you want to continue in my absence.
Why are you referring to yourself in third person? It's very...
That's what happens. See, when your mind is not fully functioning, you don't even remember who's who. But I remember who Avraham Burg is. I don't forget. And I will actually, I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to be here tomorrow because I don't control this illness, but I do guarantee that I'm going to go through that video. If it has to be old news, then we'll do it as old news. I want to be on that when we go through the whole video. Hopefully that is tomorrow. That will be a long segment, but this will become a long show once again soon. So yes, I drink chicken bone broth, not chicken soup. It's even better. But yeah, I am a fan. Hasn't helped. Well, it's helped, but it hasn't cured me. All right. Yes, it is like George referring to himself as George. And, you know, one can refer to himself in the third person.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
Yeah, I could have set that up better, but that's what happened. All right. Daniel, I don't have any more filibustering to do. Any parting thoughts?
I just watched the Seinfeld episode where George was rebuilt his stable so he could take naps there. It was pretty funny.
Under his desk. Yeah, much like a lot of things that George, a lot of brilliant ideas George had, that ended up not turning out that well for him. But yeah, Daniel, if you
or
wanna...
you know, when you want to look busy, look angry.
That wasn't the same episode, right?
No, different episode.
Was that the one that he ended up getting fired over? I don't remember.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Anyway, no, I never owned a pony. I don't know if Daniel knows that reference, but that is also a great episode. Yeah, maybe binging on some Seinfeld will help me get back into it. All right. Thanks, thanks, Daniel. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to our super chatters. Thanks to James Valiant and Jonathan Honig for being here with Daniel in my absence. And we will see you back here tomorrow for as long as we can and every day until the total victory. See you tomorrow.